What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 8MHA Chapter 176. Yi Yan's Perplexity. I Surrender. In the end, Qian Tianjian chose to admit defeat. Even if Lord Buddha was angry, he had no choice but to defeat the weak barbarian mountain, and he could not beat the quicksand monk, so it was the wisest to admit defeat. Man Shan breathed a sigh of relief on the stage. Qian Tianjian's quirk was very disgusting and couldn't resist him now in prostration, but Qian Tianjian was still a bit brainy, knowing that even if he had beaten him, he would not be able to beat the quicksand monk. The top three have already appeared, and now everyone returns to their residences to rest. After dinner in the evening, the final ranking is decided. Damu Xian laughed and waved. The Imperial League ranking tournament is almost over at this point. The top three have appeared, and the next is nothing more than the top three competitions. The first, second and third are decided. Regardless of the top three rankings, they will all be favored by the Imperial League, but Onyxian is a little dissatisfied with King Chi. The previous few games were basically where King Chi won the first place in the Imperial League, but the Imperial League reached out to him. The King of Olive Branch Chi turned a blind eye and tactfully refused. With the strength of King Chi, the Demeng is most in need of his efforts. However, because of the side effects interfered by the side effects, King Chi has rejected the kindness of the Demeng every year. Therefore, Damuxian doesn't like King Chi very much, but he doesn't. The way, Shi Wang's strength is even feared by the three emperors. A group of people left the Tokyo Underground Heroes venue and returned to their residences. After Kurosawa returned to the room, he held Chi Feng's shoulders with excited hands and said, "Brother Dark Knight, I really didn't expect us to be in the top three. This was before. It's something I have never dared to think about, but it has been realized today." Chi Feng opened Kurosawa's hands and said, "This is in my estimation, but it surprised me that Barbarian Mountain could make the top three." Kurosawa Kazunari didn't pay attention to Chi Feng's estimate. It is already a dream for him to be in the top three. After thinking about it for a while, he asked, "Brother Kurosawa seems to care about that Barbarian Mountain?" "Yes, I have a bit of hatred with this guy. His quirk is very tricky to me now. I don't know if it is his opponent." Chi Feng nodded and said. Kurosawa smiled and laughed. The accumulated power that Barbarian Mountain relies on can be seen by most people, but the Buddha was careless and gave him such a long time to accumulate strength. You must know that being kind to your opponent is cruel to yourself. What? Chi Feng nodded and said, "Yes, if Foy fights the Mansion up close, I am afraid that Mansion will not be able to hold on for long. I only blame this Buddha's brain for a little bit of trouble. But you can't underestimate Lord Buddha. His previous strength in the ring was only 1/3. Close combat is just his regular style of play. If the opponent's strength can threaten him, he will use the real strength. Kurosawa Kazunami is the 5th sage in Tokyo, and he naturally knows the Buddha who is also the 7 sages of Tokyo. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Well, although you don't need to play, you should take a good rest and see you later." Chi Feng patted Kurosawa's shoulder and turned back to his room. Kurosawa Yilong is still in excitement. How did he go to sleep at this time? But since the Dark Knight brothers have said so, it is okay for him to go back to his room and rest. After returning to the room, Chi Feng stood by the window and looked at the whole of Tokyo, thinking of Bai Shui's words, "Too outstanding is a good thing." Chi Feng didn't feel strange when he said this sentence, but Chi Feng felt something was wrong when he said it from Bai Shui. Recalling Bai Shui's strength, he should have been able to enter the top 5 ranks, but he directly surrendered in the top 10. Is there any hidden facts in this? Chi Feng didn't understand this. Maybe Bai Shui just said it casually. It was during this time that he made rapid progress, and his strength was already comparable to that of the first sage. If he even used Thor's second coming, even the first sage would not be an opponent. Yi Yan stood awkwardly on the spot. He didn't know why Underworld Tale would treat him like this. On weekdays, Underworld Tale is still relatively easy to talk about. Except for the sins of Mishima Kase and Niwakiran, he did not offend him. Okay, then why is it so? If the Legend of the Night can be promoted from the 7th sage to the 2nd sage or the 1st sage during this time, no one believes this. There are even some people who have deliberately investigated the origin of the Legend of the Night, and found that it has not been long since the appearance of the Legend of the Night, and there has been no movement since the defeat of the Trident in Shibuya until this qualifying competition. The Legend of the Night is emerging. Yi Yan couldn't figure it out, but Dark Knight Legend didn't give him face so much. He didn't need to lick his face to please him. A rising star, if he was too strong, he would probably die halfway. However, there is still a gap between the 1st sage and the 3rd sovereign, which Chi Feng deeply believes. After a rest for an afternoon, Chi Feng and Kurosawa went to the top floor restaurant for dinner. When Chi Feng appeared, most of the 7 sages and 5 kings were greeted with smiles. The Legend of the Night is one of the biggest dark horses this year. Almost no one wants to offend such a rising star. Who knows how much he will achieve in the future? Yes, my hatred with this guy is not small. Chi Feng did not hide it either. He believed that King Chi would not make a small report with people like Yi Yan. Only Chi Feng knows that although his strength was easy to deal with the Trident of Shushan at that time, he could at best challenge the top 1 or 2 rankings of Trident of Shushin. The real strength is that. What everyone believed was that Dark Knight legend was very powerful from the beginning, but in order to occupy a place in Shibuya's 7 sages, it low-key defeated the Trident of Shu County and became the 7th sage. Seeing King Chi smiled without saying a word, Chi Feng did not say anything about this, but asked about the Imperial League. After all, he is now in the top 3, so he will directly enter the headquarters of the Imperial League. Someone knew it earlier. Best of all, it is very appropriate to ask Shi Wang in this regard. Yi Yan's attitude was very good just now, perhaps until now, Yi Yan didn't know where he had offended the rising star of the Legend of Night. Congratulations, from now on, Senior Dark Knight has a boundless future. Yi Yan came to Chi Feng and hugged his fist, saying very politely. King Chi is also very patient to introduce the Emperor League to Chi Feng. Although he does not help the Emperor League, King Chi will still take action if something happens to the Emperor League, but if something happens to the Emperor League, the 3 emperors will directly intervene. It is not their turn to worry about the 7 sages and 5 kings. You seem to have an enmity with Yi Yan. Chi Wang saw Chi Feng's previous attitude, so he asked. King Chi just smiled. Yi Yan is only the middle and upper reaches of the 5 kings, and the strength of Underworld legend is basically comparable to that of the first saint. This gap is very large, so Yi Yan's offending Underworld legend is definitely not offending. He himself, but did something to offend the Legend of the Night. Seeing that it was this guy, Chi Feng's face became cold and did not reply, and he walked directly to Wang Qi and sat down. Chapter 177. Okay, next is the final game that everyone is looking forward to. The top 3 rankings are sorted, and the computer system will match it. As soon as Oki's gossip sound fell, the 3 groups of names on the big screen began to beat, and it stopped soon. Down. King Chi, Victor, Battle, The Legend of the Night, Kurosawa 1 wave. Chi Feng laughed, and actually directly confronted King Shang-Chi. He immediately stood up and said, I give up. Actually conceded? Someone was surprised. It is normal to admit defeat. King Chi has always been the strongest representative among the 7 sages. It is wise to admit defeat as a rising star, said Taichi Yoshikawa, the number 1 sage of Hokkaido. The strength of King Chi is long gone. I think the Dark Knight legend will not last long if King Chi is not hit. Nine Life squinted his eyes and said, at this time the tail on the back of his ass has grown, full 9 articles. Niwa Heron sneered, even if King Chi is not as strong as it was in the past, it is more than enough to deal with the Legend of the Night. Nine Life did not continue to speak. Niwa Siren was beaten so miserably by the Legend of the Night, so he still dared to speak like this. Fortunately, the words here are only heard by people in their area. Beat. Wang Qi smiled at Chi Feng. Obviously he thinks Undernight Legend is forgiving him. Even if the 2 of them fight, King Chi can beat Underworld Legend, but it will take some tricks. After all, the quirk of Undernight Legend is a bit tricky. Since the Legend of the Night has conceded, then the team of Mansion will face the team of King Chi. Da Muxian is not surprised. King Chi's strength has long been known in the underground heroes, especially the 7 sages, and the 7 sages are for Chi. Wang's strength has been known for a long time. Before he wants to come to this final runoff against Shang-Chi Wang, he will definitely give in. I surrender. To Chi Feng's surprise, Man Shan also surrendered. The rest of the 7 sages and 5 kings were not surprised. The strength of Barbarian Mountain was very strong and good, but if you wanted to fight against the invincible King Chi in close combat, you would definitely lose. In addition, Mansion's ultimate move requires time to accumulate, and King Chi will not give villain such a long time to enlarge his move. Then, King Chi, Victor is the first place in this qualifying competition. Although Omuxian knew that it would be the result, he had to announce it, and then said again, next, the second place will be selected. First and third place, Barbarian Mountain, Quicksand Monk, Battle, Legend of the Night, Kurosawa Yilong. This time Chi Feng flew directly to the arena from under the stage, and Mansion also walked to the arena as Chi Feng expected, standing a dozen meters away from Chi Feng. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. I didn't expect you to be in the top 3, I thought I wouldn't fight you again, Chi Feng said with a sneer. At this time, Mansion's body has recovered, and there is no slightest discomfort. He looked at Chi Feng and said, there are some things that can't escape. Yes, this hatred was forged since you wanted to see my appearance before. Chi Feng finished saying this. The long sword behind his back fell in the palm of his hand, and he rolled a terrifying wind towards the Barbarian Mountain. Chop off. Small bugs. Man Shan stepped forward, and a shockwave from his right fist greeted Chi Feng's attack. After the 2 collided, Man Shan stepped back a few steps. This time Chi Feng also stepped forward, and the long sword in his hand slashed again, and a white pike quickly rushed towards the Wild Mountain. Barbarian Mountain just counteracted Chi Feng's attack. As a result, Chi Feng's second attack had arrived. His heart was ablaze and he punched out again. The attack of Underworld Legend didn't matter a few times and could be blocked. But when this white pike training came to the front, the shockwave of Mansion's punch was directly dissipated. In this white pike training, Mansion felt a feeling of extinguishing everything. It was too late to evade, and Man Shan shouted, and a ripple rushed out between his hands to block the white horse training, but it was still breached and hit Man Shan directly on his wrist. Two deep scars appeared, and the blood from the wound dripped to the ground along the arm, and Man Shan was injured during Chi Feng's second move. Chi Feng's sword is a vacuum cut. The shockwave of Mansion is a kind of external force, mixed with some power such as wind. Chi Feng knew how to deal with Mansion after he was blocked by the first sword, so the second sword directly cut the vacuum cut and hit Mansion by surprise. Chi Feng noticed the change in Mansion's eyes, and the long sword in his hand began to compress air, from the air on the tip of the sword to the handle, and then repeatedly. Under everyone's sight, I saw that Mansion's right hand began to turn red and then became like the lava of Yamanaka. The surrounding temperature continued to rise at this moment, and white gas began to emerge on the ground. Man Shan put his hands down, the blood on his arms was still flowing, and it stopped after a while. His eyes were full of anger, and he stared at Chi Feng. At this moment, Chi Feng stabbed out, and the ground broke instantly, like a muddy ground run over by a train. The surrounding temperature dropped with this sting. As long as any tricks were exposed to the air, it was him. His men were defeated. Chi Feng was shocked. Mansion actually has this kind of trick. Isn't his quirk a shockwave? Mansion felt weak, and the power of this move was no worse than the previous one against Buddha, so he was a little weak at the moment. Seeing that his right hand was already red and almost dazzling and glowing, Mansion punched out. Then there is one last way left, and that is his other trick. How could the shockwave have something to do with the temperature? This is a bit outrageous. In a moment, all the red on the right hand of Barbarian Mountain disappeared, and a huge red tiger head appeared. All the power was added to the red tiger head. The ground was directly cracked due to the high temperature. All the people present with a look of surprise. Although Barbarian Mountain is angry, he also knows that he can't mess around. The Tales of Night has clearly found a way to suppress him. If it is not appropriate to fight in close quarters, Barbarian Mountain is very hard. He doesn't think his fists can hit him. Wear a cloak. Chi Feng didn't dare to be careless. The long sword was immediately covered with cooling air, changing the quality of the air, creating pressure and cooling, and then continued to compress the air. Mansion knew that there was no other way, so he could only use this last trick. He had only used this trick once so far, and this was the second time. Under this kind of trick, can the Legend of the Night be able to stop it? Although Chi Feng was surprised by Mansion's punch, he was not afraid. At this moment, the various powers on the long sword were almost condensed. Chi Feng won't be scared by his eyes. Mansion is very strong, but now the shockwave has no effect on him, so besides the previous big tricks against Foy, Mansion should have nothing to do with him. So now there are only two ways. The first is to accumulate power to release the ultimate move. It is the same as before against Buddha, but the Legend of the Night cannot give him time to accumulate power, so he can only accumulate secretly, but the power accumulated in secret is very slow, and will collapse under external pressure. Chapter 178 Mansion is determined to win, and he is already weak at this time, but as long as the punch is out, the Legend of the Night will have nowhere to escape. But to Mansion's shock, the Legend of the Night did not intend to escape. Instead, he took a step forward and stabbed him with the long sword in his hand. Is this guy looking for death? Mansion didn't think he had taken out one of his strongest tricks and he couldn't deal with Underworld. If Underworld was not resisted by this punch, even if the black cloak on his body was too hard, it would fall apart. In the end of Underworld. Cruising on the edge of death. But Mansion didn't expect that not only did Dark Knight Legend have no defense, but directly attacked, actually wanting to defeat his Yanning Tiger Fist. This is simply an idiotic dream. But the next moment Mansion's pupils suddenly shrank, and I saw the stab of Dark Knight Legend's sword attack hit his Yanning Tiger Fist like a rotten blow, and Man Shan imagined that his Yanning Tiger all defeated the Knight Legend. The picture of the attack did not appear. On the contrary, when his Yanning Tiger Fist came into contact with the attack of the Legend of Night, it began to shrink like a mouse meeting a cat, and then his Yanning Tiger Fist began to collapse, although the power weakened the attack of the Legend of Night, but his Yanning Tiger Fist disappeared. How is it possible? Mansion exclaimed in surprise. His Yanning Tiger Fist would actually be defeated. Is the Dark Knight Legend really so powerful? Chi Feng's heart trembled. He suddenly remembered Bai Shui's words. With a roll of the sword in his hand, the attack that was about to reach Mansion immediately became weaker. The mountain was blasted a dozen meters away. Ha ha ha, I knew you weren't that strong. Although Mansion was knocked into the air, he was terrified in his heart, but after being hit by Chi Feng's attack, he realized that Chi Feng had a virtual appearance. This attack was real. The power had been defeated by his Yanning Tiger Fist, but it was 1 point stronger than his Yanning Tiger Fist. In this case, Man Shan was confident that he could defeat the Legend of the Night. He stood up again, his hands folded into a fist shape, and his body began to spin like a top. Looking at Man Shan turning towards him like a humanoid cutter, Chi Feng can actually crack this trick with a single sword. Perhaps Man Shan thought he could not keep up with the physical strength of that trick, so he used this trick. But Chi Feng just smiled in his heart. He had tried the trick several times just now, but now Chi Feng will not use it anymore. Putting the long sword back on his back, Chi Feng rushed directly to the rotating Barbarian Mountain. Everyone thought that the two of them were going to do physical shopping. After all, the tricks of the two just now would consume too much energy, all of them are in everyone's hands, as expected. But the next moment everyone was puzzled, and I saw that the legend of the night was directly knocked into the sky by the spinning top of the wild mountain, and then, unexpectedly, directly, fell out of the ring. Kurosawa Kazuki looked at the legend of the night falling outside the ring in shock. Although he failed to make the top 3, Kurosawa Kazuki still felt a little regretful, but it didn't matter. He couldn't be the opponent of Barbarian Mountain. Even if he fought the weak Barbarian Mountain, he would not win when he was exhausted and dealt with the quicksand monk, so Kurosawa gave in. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. The Wild Mountain wins. Da Muxian immediately announced, this is the end of the Imperial League ranking tournament. The first place is Chi Feng, the second place is Wild Mountain, and the third place is Dark Knight Legend. The name Okishen reported is naturally the strongest representative in this group. The mountain stopped spinning, and he looked at the legend of the night under the ring a little strangely. According to the logic, even if the power of the legend of the night was exhausted, he couldn't be knocked into the air so quickly. Besides, wouldn't the legend of the night fly? This question is also a question in the hearts of some people, but most people know that the strength of the legend of the night may be exhausted, and then they have to use their body to fight, leading to being knocked into the air. It seems that Dark Knight Legend is not very physically strong. The fifth Saint Blacksmith Miyazaki nodded and said. At this time, the second sage bartender of Miyazaki heard these words and immediately sneered, can't you see that the legend of the night is deliberate? According to his usual style, how can he directly get up and let the Wild Mountain fight? Huh? The blacksmith frowned and asked, the second holy means, is the Dark Knight Legend really deliberate? Nonsense, you people can't see it. As for the reason why the Dark Knight Legend deliberately lost the game, it's unclear. The bartender stared at Chi Feng, his brain thinking. This question was discussed between the 7 sages and the 5 kings, but soon the voice of the discussion was suppressed by Da Muxian. All the 7 sages and the 5 kings go to the negative first floor to get the competition rewards. The top 10 and the top 5 rewards are all on the first floor. The current Imperial League ranking tournament has come to a successful conclusion, and the top 3 will come with me. After Da Muxian said these words, he looked at the top 3, and then walked to a VIP room. Chi Feng followed immediately and entered the private room. Congratulations to the 6 of you, you will receive the attention of the Imperial League. Da Mu Xian smiled, very happy in his heart. Those who can increase the strength of the Imperial League are naturally happy, except for King Chi. Excuse me, Mr. Damu, when will we enter the Imperial League? Monk Quicksand said with his hands folded. Da Muxian said, I'm about to tell you about this. You go back and return your room now, and then wait for me in the lobby of the hotel, and I will take you there. Understood. Monk Quicksand nodded. Chi Feng hurried back to the hotel immediately after leaving the VIP room. It wasn't that he couldn't wait to go to the Imperial League, but because he was afraid that Yi Yan would run away. After leaving the room, Chi Feng directly waited for Yi Yan at the elevator door. Yi Yan's speed should not be so fast, so Chi Feng knew that waiting here is the best. Sure enough, Yi Yan walked out of the elevator 10 minutes later. He was accompanied by a 5 king, who seemed to be called the Hirakoda, the 3rd king of Miyazaki. When Yi Yan saw Chi Feng standing here, he just nodded, and then left the hotel with Kenta Dahe. After the qualifying contest, all underground heroes could return to their city. Night Tales. Just as Chi Feng wanted to follow, he saw Da Muxian walk in from the front door and stopped him. Is there anything to do with Da Mu Guan? Chi Feng asked. He didn't want to lose Yi Yan, otherwise it would take a lot of effort to find Yi Yan. Oh no, but didn't I say, let you wait for me in the lobby, I think you are going out? Da Muxian said puzzledly. Yes, I have something to deal with. Please forgive me, Mr. Wood, and I will go back. Chi Feng left the hotel directly after saying this. Fortunately, Yi Yan did not go far. Chi Feng followed him far behind. Seeing Dark Knight Legend's departure, Da Muxian frowned but didn't say anything. Brother Yi, I always feel that someone is following us. Dapping Zhengtai looked around and said with some worry. This is Tokyo, what if someone is following? Do you think this is the suburbs? Yi Yan said without worry, still walking on his own. He is going to a private club in Tokyo, where someone is waiting hold him. But, Dahe Kentai wanted to say something, but was interrupted again by Yi Yan. Don't be nervous, it's important for us to do business now, and they will be blamed if they wait in a hurry, so hurry up. Chapter 179. This palm is for Sister Ying. Hirakoda's quirk is close intuition. He can feel things that are not good for him within a certain range, so he can avoid this danger. So he was very worried because his quirk told him that someone would be against them. But Yi Yan didn't listen at all, he had no choice but to follow along. Chi Feng was a little surprised. The dapping Zhengtai would look in the direction he was following from time to time, but fortunately he didn't find him. It's strange to say that after Yi Yan left the hotel, there was no taxi or no one to pick him up. He actually walked. Where's this guy going? When Yi Yan walked into an alley, a black shadow suddenly fell in front of him and Koda Dahe. Legend of the Dark Knight? Dapping Zheng exclaimed in shock. What are you doing here? Didn't Muxian let you wait for him in the hotel lobby? Yi Yan was also taken aback. In any case, it's not a good thing for this Dark Knight legend to appear here. The man in front of him. Chi Feng sneered, don't you know what I am doing here? Yi Yan frowned, I really don't know. Here, Yi Yan didn't believe that the Legend of the Night would dare to do something against him, and he had never offended the Legend of the Night, so the Legend of the Night would not be like him. Since you don't know, then come with me. Chi Feng took a few steps forward. I have something to do, I won't accompany you. Yi Yan finished saying this, and the flames on his body swept out towards Chi Feng, and at the same time he shouted, let's do it together. Facing people like the Legend of the Night, you must do your best. Fortunately, he is not alone. Although Kodadahe is the third king, even the two of them together cannot guarantee that they will not disturb others, as long as they fight here. To outsiders, then everything is easy to say. Dahe Zhengtai couldn't take care of that much anymore, and a short sword from his waist was pulled out and struck Chi Feng with a sword. But Yi Yan was thinking too well. Chi Feng rolled it with one hand, and an invisible force directly extinguished the flames in the sky, and then Yi Yan's body was not controlled by him, and he actually flew into the sky. How is it possible? Yi Yan's scared soul flew away. How could this Dark Knight legend be so strong? It was just a short time after the end of the game, even if he could recover his strength so quickly. But then he couldn't tolerate Yi Yan to think about it. He and Dapping Zhengtai were both rolled up and taken directly by Chi Feng. Because of the city of Tokyo, Chi Feng didn't dare to take these two guys too far. Just 10 seconds later, Chi Feng landed on a rooftop of 10 stories and threw the two on the ground. Air manipulation blocked the actions of the two. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Night Tales, do you know what you are doing? Yi Yan roared. We are both underground heroes. We can't harm each other. Are you breaking the rules? Chi Feng was taken aback. After thinking for a while, he said, is there such a rule? Why don't I know? Then you know now, let me go. I have something to do. Yi Yan shouted again. Dapping Zhengtai sat on the ground without saying a word. He was always disturbed, feeling that he was going to die. Let's put your mess up. Laozi's business is more important. Chi Feng sneered, then changed the conversation and asked. You did the Fujiwara convenience store a few months ago, right? Yi Yan originally wanted to yell, but when Chi Feng asked, he was startled and subconsciously said, how do you know? Sure enough, you did it. Chi Feng's murderous intent spread in his heart. No matter what, this Yi Yan is dead today. Who are you? Why do you care about the Fujiwara convenience store? Yi Yan looked at Chi Feng very puzzled. This has happened for a long time, and how did the Legend of the Night know? It doesn't matter who I am. What is important is who is instructing you behind. Chi Feng's tone turned cold, and it seemed that the surrounding temperature had dropped. Yi Yan's heart trembled and he regretted it. It seemed that Dark Knight legend was related to the Fujiwara convenience store, but when they asked themselves to do this, they said very clearly. Except for the student named Chi Feng, the Fujiwara convenience store's things will not happen to a third person. But the current situation is that Dark Knight legend seems to have something to do with the Fujiwara convenience store, and it seems that the relationship is not shallow. The person behind me is not something you can provoke. Even if your strength is comparable to that of the number one saint, it is still too far behind. Yi Yan felt Chi Feng's killing intent and knew that he might not survive, but he could scare him. Okay, maybe you can save your life. Let's talk about it. As long as you say it, I might be able to spare your life, Chi Feng said meaningfully. Really? Yi Yan heard it as if he had grasped the straw of hope. Quickly, I don't have such good patience. Chi Feng took the sword behind his back. Yi Yan said immediately. Okay, I said. Some time ago, Villain Alliance asked me to do the Fujiwara convenience store. I think you know who Villain Alliance is. They let me set fire to the convenience store, and then locked the woman named Inoue Sakura inside the door, but it didn't. Let me kill her directly, and I will leave after all this is done. Yi Yan went on to say. Villain Alliance asked me to go to a private club to find them after the qualifying contest of the Imperial League. Now I am going to the private club, but it was intercepted by you halfway. The reason for adding this sentence is to make the Legend of the Night jealous. The power of the Villain Alliance is now regarded as a big power in the island country. Offending the Villain Alliance is just one word, death. In the face of such a behemoth, the strength of the Legend of the Night is nothing. Tell me the address. Chi Feng said in a flat tone, and at the same time lifted the shackles of Yi Yan. Yi Yan did not hesitate and took out the phone from his pocket when he was able to move. Chi Feng moved the phone and dropped it into his hand. After remembering the location in his mind, Chi Feng directly smashed the phone. Ah, my phone. Yi Yan called out. Phone? Chi Feng suddenly sneered. Since you love your phone so much, go with your phone. This palm is for Sister Ying. After saying this, Chi Feng didn't even use the sword. He directly condensed a big air hand with his left hand, and slapped the two of them with a slap. You lied to me. Yi Yan cracked his teeth, regretting as much as he felt in his heart. He didn't expect the Dark Knight legend to deceive him, and there was the kind of arson that happened before. However, as soon as he finished saying this, people were slapped into meatloaf. If Chi Feng didn't attach the air to the ground would collapse directly if he slapped it on the ground. After Yi Yan and Dapping Zhengtai died, Chi Feng cleaned up the scene and used Thor's second coming to melt the bodies of the two directly, as if they had never appeared before, and the dead smoke disappeared. The location of the private club appeared in his mind, and Chi Feng hurried to the location according to the location. Since it was done by Villain Alliance, don't blame him for being rude, it just happened that the new and old accounts were settled together. As long as Nomu is not there, he is not afraid of anyone coming to the Villain Alliance. Chapter 180 Reunion Villain Alliance. Time has passed. Kurogiri in a suit and collar raised his hand and glanced at his watch, and the time agreed with Yi Yan had already passed. At this moment, he is in a private club, with a large space of 300 square meters. There is one person standing on the left and right sides of him. On the opposite side of the sofa where he sits a man in casual clothes. This man has some lips. Thick, wearing black sunglasses, is playing with his phone at the moment. Maybe it was delayed on the road, the man in sunglasses said casually, taking a glass of red wine on the table and drank it. Kurogiri's yellow eyes flickered, and asked in a flat tone, "What's the matter with the hands?" The man in sunglasses put the empty wine glass back on the table, and then he said, "It's all in progress, but it's not so fast, but there are two people who are good, but there is no intention to join it yet." "Yes, speed it up, Shigaraki Tamura means as soon as possible." Kurogiri nodded, just about to say something, and suddenly turned to look at the door. Here. The man in sunglasses also looked at the door, and it seemed that Yi Yan was coming. But when a black figure walked into the room, Kurogiri and the man in sunglasses realized that it was not Wild Flame. "Who are you?" The man in sunglasses stood up suddenly, and this person wrapped in black was not Yi Yan in no way. Kurogiri did not speak, but silently looked at the man at the door. Chi Feng finally found this place. Speaking of it, it's really hard to find. Private clubs are equipped with surveillance, and there are many people guarding them outside. If he hadn't used the invisibility technique, he wouldn't be able to get in at all, but waited for them to be in infrared rays. When he was found under the camera, he had already entered. "I saw two people sitting on the sofa in the room. One of them is Kurogiri. I have known each other." Chi Feng is right to think about it. Kurogiri's quirk is teleportation. It is very convenient to go anywhere. Since Yi Yan is going to work at Villain Alliance, Kurogiri's actions are the most convenient. Therefore, Kurogiri is naturally weighing here. And another Chi Feng also knows, this man is called Yinshi Janshi, a member of the Villain Alliance, known as Sister C. Seeing these two people, Chi Feng was relieved. Fortunately, the troublesome guys are not there. If there are two more people here, Chi Feng will go straight away. After all, even though he is strong, it is impossible to be the opponent of so many Villain Alliance. "Why don't you speak, dumb?" Yinshi Janshi frowned. "What can you do with Yi Yan?" Chi Feng asked flatly. "Oh." Kurogiri looked at Chi Feng intentionally. "You are from Yi Yan. Where is he?" Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Hearing the man in the black cloak talking about Yi Yan, Yinshi Janshi relaxed some of his vigilance. "You are here to join the Villain Alliance. Now that you know Yi Yan, then forgive you for your rudeness." Yinshi Janshi sat down again, and it was right to think about it. If it hadn't been for joining the Villain Alliance, how could it be so bold to appear here? Yi Yan is dead. Otherwise, why do you think I got here? Chi Feng sneered. The long sword behind it was picked up by the wind and fell into the palm of his hand. "What?" Yinshi Janshi stood up again, waved the giant magnet stick lying on the side and held him in his arms. This was actually someone who came to provoke the Villain Alliance. "Did you kill Yi Yan?" Kurogiri also stood up. Yi Yan is the middle and upper reaches of the Five Kings. The ability to kill Yi Yan shows that the strength of the Black Cloak Man in front of him is at least the first king, or even higher. "That's right, I'm here to ask for the account today. You will naturally pay the price if you provoke me." Chi Feng waved his left hand and closed the door directly. "Villain Alliance doesn't seem to have offended you." Kurogiri's eyes flashed. He had never seen this man with a black cloak, so how could he be offended? "Of course you don't know if you don't offend me. Don't talk nonsense. Look at the sword." Chi Feng slashed directly after saying this, and cut it in a vacuum. "Yinshijian magnetic." Kurogiri called. "Yo." Yinshi Janshi nodded to express his understanding, and the magnet stick in his hand swung out instantly to face Chi Feng's vacuum chop. In his thoughts, the man in the black cloak would not even want to leave today. Although the Villain Alliance is not many at present, it is valuable in the elite, and he is one of the elites. But the next moment he was a little stunned. The opponent's attack came in front of him, and there was an inexplicable force in it, and Yinshi Jianshi couldn't think about it to meet the magnet stick. Boom! With a muffled sound, Yinshi Janshi took a dozen steps back before stopping, and his hands were a little numb. How is this possible? Yinshi Janshi looked at Chi Feng in shock. His magnet stick is very hard, and he can resist ordinary tricks. How could the shocked hands become numb? Kurogiri knew that he had encountered a hard stubble, so he immediately activated the quirk and disappeared in place. Chi Feng's gaze moved and judged the location of Kurogiri based on the subtle changes in the air. When Kurogiri's portal opened, Chi Feng turned his head back and slashed out, cutting off the Kurogiri who had just appeared. Kurogiri disappeared again after being cut, and then appeared next to Yinshi Janshi and looked at Chi Feng in shock. "How did you do it?" The teleportation quirk is very strong. Kurogiri knew that the other party should not be able to grasp a specific location at the moment he teleported, and the moment he appeared, the man accurately grasped his movement, which was very scary. At this moment, Kurogiri knew that the reason why the man in the black cloak came here without fear was because of his strength rather than being arrogant. Why, Admiral Kurogiri of Villain Alliance is helpless. Chi Feng chuckled. Kurogiri's quirk is indeed very powerful, but when using quirk in space, he can detect it for the first time as long as there is air, so Kurogiri's quirk is useless to him at the moment. Since even the quirk is useless to him, Kurogiri is also no threat at all. Kurogiri has no such thing as physical skills at all. It just relies on the quirk. Although it is elemental, it is not necessarily to please Chi Feng. Unless Kurogiri joins forces with others, he can maximize the quirk, but the Yinshiji and magnetism here at this moment cannot cooperate with Kurogiri to deal with him. Kurogiri also knew that his quirk seemed useless in front of the man in the black cloak. As for the cooperation with Yinshi to subdue it, he didn't even think about it. You know me well? Kurogiri asked suspiciously. He was sure he hadn't seen this man anywhere, but looking at the costume at the moment made him feel a little familiar. I know everyone in the Villain Alliance. Why, are you afraid? Chi Feng took a few steps forward and shook the blade. The elites of the Villain Alliance don't speak much, anyway. Chi Feng knows only those people, unless there are some people in the dark, he may not know, but he still knows most of the Villain Alliance members. Kurogiri's eyes were uncertain. The man seemed to know Villain Alliance and them very well. Before he knew exactly who this guy was, he had to leave. Want to go? As soon as the air began to change, Chi Feng knew that Kurogiri wanted to teleport away. He shook his left hand forward. The positions of Kurogiri and Yinshiji and magnetic suddenly stopped, and Kurogiri was shocked. Chapter 181 Entering the Imperial League. Kurogiri just thought about going, and the quirk was also about to start, but the other party actually did it directly. The air in the side where he was actually started to stagnate, and the way he wanted to go became much slower. Yinshi Jianqi was taken aback. This guy can control the surrounding air at will. What kind of quirk is this? Chi Feng stabbed forward with the sword in his right hand, a cracking sound rang, and he rushed directly to Kurogiri and Yinshi Jianqi. Kurogiri launched the quirk frantically. Chi Feng's attack has already arrived. After leaving a pool of bloodline, Kurogiri disappeared without a trace. There was no one in the room, and even the few followers were taken away. Chi Feng could only give up about this. Kurogiri insisted on leaving and he couldn't stop him. At least this time he came to teach the people of Villain Alliance, and it seemed that they had destroyed their purpose of looking for wild flames and made the Villain Alliance's bamboo basket empty. Now Kurogiri is injured, and Villain Alliance must look into himself when he looks back, but Chi Feng doesn't care much. He took out his mobile phone from his arms and looked at it. 20 minutes have passed. It's time to go back. Damuxian was still waiting for him, so he couldn't delay any longer. Chi Feng left the private club and returned to the same way. Where have you been? As soon as Chi Feng entered the hotel lobby, he heard a slight complaint from Damuxian. Chi Feng hurriedly laughed and said, some private matters have made everyone wait for a long time. King Chi didn't say anything, but Man Shan snorted coldly. Now, although he doubts whether the underworld tale has deliberately lost to him in the end, he now feels that underworld is about the same strength as himself. Damuxian waved his hand and said, forget it, come with me, the car is already waiting. The 6 people followed Damuxian into a black business car. There were 8 seats in the back of the car, enough for 6 of them. After the car started, Chi Feng found out that except for the transparent front windshield, the rest of the windows are black. This black is black that can be seen. Chi Feng didn't care about this. Demeng definitely didn't want them to remember the route. Some sights from the front of the car couldn't remember the route. After getting in the car, the quicksand monk began to sleep, and Kurosawa leaned his head over and asked Chi Feng, where did you go just now? Nothing, just dealt with some things. Chi Feng wouldn't say that he killed Yi Yan. Yi Yan is also a member of the Imperial League. The entire underground heroes, the 3 emperors, the 7 sacred and the 5 kings, are all from the Imperial League. If he said now killing Yi Yan is tantamount to killing each other. Before Yi Yan died, he also said that the same underground heroes must not harm each other. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Seeing that Chi Feng didn't want to say anything, Kurosawa Kazuma did not continue to ask. In short, he is very excited now. He has been in the 7 sages for more than a year, and he has never entered the Imperial League. To put it bluntly, at the position of the 7 sages, if you don't enter the Imperial League, sooner or later, you will be replaced by a rising star. There are too many resources and opportunities to cultivate talents in the Imperial League. There will be stronger people to take your place. This is why the 7 sages and 5 kings often change, that is, they will be replaced if they do not grow in strength. The 3 emperors are different. Most of the emperors of the 3 emperors hold positions in the Emperor League, so the Emperor League highly values them and gives them abundant resources. How can they be surpassed by rising stars, who have been improving in strength? Kurosawa Kazuki knew that the opportunity was here. He had to seize this opportunity to stay in the Imperial League, even if his position as the 5th holy in Tokyo was replaced by someone else. In short, staying in the Imperial League is better than going back to improve his strength, too much. It took more than an hour before the car stopped. When Chi Feng got out of the car, the 6 people found that they had come to a plain. The boundary of the plain was the sea. Where is this? Victor looked around. How could there be the headquarters of the Imperial League in this place where the bird does not shit? Come with me. Damuxian got out of the car and walked forward. This is a plane, but there is a small mountain bag. Chi Feng has better eyesight, and he has already seen the helicopter on the small mountain bag ahead. Is this the other side of the sea? Chi Feng asked suddenly. Da Mu Xian turned his head and looked at Chi Feng, smiled and said, yes, the Emperor League is on an island on the sea, otherwise where do you think it is? Victor suddenly realized it. After everyone got on the helicopter, the plane started to fly to the other side of the sea. After half an hour, Chi Feng could see an island standing on the magnificent sea. The area of the island is small, but not small. In the center of the island, there is a huge semicircular building, Shen Heng, like a huge tortoise shell. When the helicopter got closer, Chi Feng knew how big the place was. It was ridiculously big. The small helicopter on the edge of the building is like an ant on the edge of a tortoise. After everyone got off the plane, rows of heavily armed soldiers ran over and stood on both sides of the building. Each soldier had an automatic rifle in his hand and looked very serious. Chi Feng was secretly surprised that this imperial alliance actually exists like a private country, and there are armed soldiers. Shouldn't the island government be ignored if such a place exists? However, Chi Feng thought about it for a while and realized that the Imperial League exists in any country, which may be equivalent to a country's reserve military force. Everyone follow me, don't go around. Damuxian greeted him and then walked forward. Chi Feng and others immediately followed behind. They didn't dare to mess around in such a place. It is said that the strong in the Imperial League are like clouds, and the existence of the three emperors abounds, just don't know if it is true. It was only when the six Chi Feng entered the semicircular building that they knew how developed and advanced it is. There are intelligent robots all around, and even the cleaning robots seem to have no shadow of human labor. Damuxian took Chi Feng and others 7 turns and 8 turns, and then took the elevator down to the 10th floor. Chi Feng noticed that there are 50 floors of negative elevator floors in Demeng, while the positive floors have 60 floors. The negative elevator floor will be locked after the 10th floor. It requires the core members of the Imperial League to continue going down. The positive number is not so harsh. The core members are only needed on the 20th floor. Damuxian didn't introduce anything about the Emperor League, and directly led Chi Feng's 6 people into a room. There was nothing in the room except a sofa and a table. Wait here, I need to ask the Emperor. Damuxian left directly after speaking, and then unexpectedly locked the door. The Imperial League is heavily guarded, but I always feel very uncomfortable, Monk Quicksand said with a frown. Normal, otherwise there won't be so many powerful people in the Imperial League, Kurzawa Yilong said at this time. I hope so, I don't want to spend a long time trying to find nothing in the Imperial League, Victor said lightly. Chi Feng despised in his heart, are you struggling? He doesn't even need any effort to follow Wang Qi. He Tan struggled to say that he was really not an honest guy. Chapter 182 10 minutes later, Damuxian returned. Come together, now follow me to see the Emperor. Da Mu Xian looked at the crowd and said. Chi Feng and others followed Damuxian into the elevator again. This time Damuxian put his eyes on the smart recognizer, and the system scanned Damuxian's pupils. Unlock all the layers, unlock the NPC and Mu Shandu. After unlocking the elevator floor number, Damuxian directly pressed the -50 floor button, and the elevator began to descend. Watching the declining elevator floors, Man Shan had an intuitive understanding of Damuxian. The Imperial League gave him the feeling that he was a behemoth now, and Damuxian seemed to occupy an important position in the Imperial League. If you have a good relationship with Damuxian, you may be able to mix better in the Imperial League. Ding dong, the -50th floor is here. When the elevator door is opened, you will see a huge fan-shaped door. This door is cast from purple spar. There is a plaque on the top of the door. The word Imperial Palace is written on the plaque. The majestic atmosphere. Don't talk. Damuxian exhorted, and he came to the door of amethyst and put his pupil on the system again, and the door was opened soon. What caught your eye was a huge palace, really like a castle, more magnificent than the ancient emperor. The red carpet is spread all the way to the forefront. On the high platform at the forefront, a white-haired man sits on a white jade chair. This man looks at most 25 years old. He wears a white suit with outstanding temperament. Presumably this is the Emperor of the Imperial League. And there are 4 seats below, and there are 4 people sitting on the seats. They're dressed in weird clothes, but they have a strong breath. By D, these 6 are the first 3 groups of this qualifying competition. I brought them to see you. Damu Xian said respectfully. Chi Feng is standing in the middle of these 4 seats. At this moment, he can really feel the strength of the people in these 4 seats. Everyone's strength is higher than that of the 7 sages, at least the level of the 3 emperors. However, since Chi Feng felt the breath of Shenquan, the strength of these 4 people is still far from Shenquan, and perhaps they are also hovering in the 3rd emperor, which is similar to the Poison King. Thinking of Poison King, Chi Feng sneered in his heart. Poison King's strength is not as strong as the 4 present here. Maybe Poison King is one of the weakest of the 3 emperors. The next time Chi Feng meets the Poison King, it will be the death of the Poison King. Baidi glanced over several people of Chi Feng. Among them, Chi Feng was the only one who was wrapped in a black cloak, but Baidi did not ask Chi Feng to remove the helmet. Yes, it's King Chi. Are you the number one this year? Baidi said flatly while looking at King Chi. King Chi stepped forward and said, yes, as in previous years, I only need things, not joining the Imperial League. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Hearing King Chi said that he would not join the Emperor League, Baidi was neither angry nor angry, and there was no expression on his face, but the four people below Baidi were a little angry. Wang Chi, you can be regarded as the older generation of the Imperial League. Why are you still so stubborn? A man sitting on the left said with a bit of irritation. Wang Chi directly stunned and went back. Oh, so do you have a way to treat my side effects? There is no way, the person said directly. Since you have no choice, what are you talking about here? Are you kidding me about my life? Chi Wang's face became cold. You. The man stood up immediately. Chi Wang was going to turn the sky over. Enough. Baidi glanced at the two of them, and then said, King Chi's affairs are left with him, and the side effects of Emperor Chi can't be cured. This is true, so don't talk about these things with King Chi in the future. He has the final say whether to join or not. We do not force to stay. Thank you, Baidi. Chi Wang sighed in relief and gave a fist to Baidi. You go to the door and wait first. Baidi said lightly, and Wang Chi said he understood and left alone. Looking at the back of Chi Wang's departure, Chi Feng always feels lonely. What about you? Baidi looked at Chi Feng and others. Man Shan knew what Baidi meant, and was obviously asking if they would join the Imperial League and enter the headquarters directly. I am willing to join the Imperial League and serve the Imperial League here. Man Shan stood out first, holding his fists. Chi Feng is a little surprised. Man Shan seems to be very active. But so far, Chi Feng feels more and more a courtesy of dignity and inferiority. The more he climbs up in this world of the strong, the more the inferiority become more obvious. Where does it need to be so restrained outside? Okay, the Imperial League needs talents like you very much. Baidi smiled slightly. He already knew the strength and disposition of Barbarian Mountain. This is what Dalmuxian told him. The only way for such a person is to be a killer, or it's Deadpool. Manshan is overjoyed. As long as he enters the Emperor League, his strength will be greatly improved, and becoming the three emperors is just around the corner in the near future. Except Chi Feng, everyone on the scene expressed that they would join the Imperial League. Even Kurosawa Yilong chose to join the Imperial League because he knew that it was impossible to improve his strength outside, and it could only be achieved in the Imperial League. After finally entering the Imperial League, Kurosawa Kazuki would not give up this opportunity. What about you? Why didn't you make a statement? A man sitting on the right under Baidi looked at Chi Feng. Chi Feng took a few steps forward, ignoring the person, looked at Baidi and said, Baidi, I can join the Imperial League, but I need freedom. If I can't come and go freely, then I won't join the Imperial League. Do you think the Emperor League comes as you want, and leaves as you want? The tone of the man on the right below was a little dissatisfied. Why is the newcomer so ignorant of the sky and the earth, and just want to open a dyeing workshop for some color? Can you represent the Imperial League? Chi Feng turned to look at the man. Although the opponent is stronger than him, Chi Feng's momentum is not weak at all. Okay, you're fine. After the man said 4 words, he stopped talking. Kurosawa Yilong is anxious. Brother Dark Knight is dying. Dare to talk to people in the Imperial League like this in the Imperial League. Once Baidi goes mad, he won't even have the chance to leave here alive. But at this moment he can't remind Chi Feng what to pay attention to. Chi Feng doesn't want to be restricted to personal freedom. He still has to go to school, otherwise the disappearance of a top student in Heroes as a class is a big deal. If he is free to come and go, he can join the Imperial League. After all, there seems to be a way to improve his strength. Baidi was neither angry nor angry. He looked at Chi Feng plainly. After a long time, when the atmosphere in the hall was embarrassing, Baidi said, Yes, I can give you privileges and freedom of entry and exit. The League has something to look for you. You can't shirk it. Don't worry, it will not kill you. Okay, then I agree. Thank you, Baidi, Chi Feng said with a hand. Baidi, what about us? Manshan suddenly asked. If only the Legend of the Night can freely enter and leave the Emperor League, and they can't, it would be too bullying. You can't, but the Emperor League won't treat you as birds. You can go back several times a month. After Baidi finished speaking, Manshan wanted to say something. At this time, Baidi looked directly at Dalmuxian and said, Take them down to collect the reward. Yes. Dalmuxian obeyed immediately, and Manshan had no choice but to give up. Chapter 183 Chi Feng's heart is secretly refreshed. Baidi is like giving him face, but he can't be happy too early. Since Baidi is so partial to him, then if the Emperor League wants him to do something, Chi Feng is really not good. Refuse. But all this depends on the benefits given by the Imperial League. If it's just money rights, Chi Feng is really not interested. After Dalmuxian took Chi Feng and the others away, the man sitting on the right side below Baidi stood up and said, Baidi, this year's newcomers other than King Chi are too ignorant to praise, right? I think Deacon Morikawa Rei is right. The newcomers in this session are a bit defiant, and I hope that Emperor Bai can be more disciplined. A man sitting on the left stood up, echoing what the person said before. You don't need to worry about these things. I am asking you to come today not to listen to your complaints, but to have other things. Just listen to them. Baidi glanced at the 4 people, and the other 2 immediately stood up and said understand. Da Muxian brought Chi Feng's 6 people to a scientific research room. Chi Feng glanced across the rows of items on the shelf, only surprised, but did not say anything. When everyone went deeper and deeper, a white metal door stood in front of everyone. Da Muxian scanned his pupils again, and Chi Feng immediately smelled a medicine after opening the white metal door. This is the most important place of the Imperial League. Basically all the achievements of the Imperial League are here. As long as you work for the Imperial League, the newly researched results will be used by you first. Of course, if you are not up to the Imperial League. Shin, although there are good things for you, but I want to compare with the first production line, it is far from it. Da Muxian spoke while watching the expressions of the 6 people. The greed in Mansion's eyes flashed away. Looking at these neatly arranged potions and all kinds of things he hadn't seen before, his chest was rapidly rising and falling. It was really the right choice to come to the Imperial League, as long as he stayed here to improve his strength. Sooner or later. Chi Feng's face is calm, but Chi Feng has some thoughts in his mind. According to Da Muxian, he needs to scan with his eyes every time he enters important places in the Imperial League. If someone directly digs out Da Muxian's eyes, isn't it, can you directly enter and exit anywhere in the Imperial League? This is not impossible, since even he wants to get it, wouldn't Baidi think of it? Maybe there are other factors. In short, Chi Feng feels that Da Muxian is not safe. Da Muxian glanced at the 6 people. Except for Chi Feng wearing a helmet, he couldn't see the expressions clearly. He bet the other people's expressions in his eyes. Although Mansion didn't have any expressions, his undulating chest proved his excitement, and Da Muxian also felt normal. Newcomers who had just entered the Imperial League would inevitably be excited when they saw these things. Then, apart from Chi Wang's calm face, the others were more or less excited. Dr. Mew, take 6 W-type reagents. Da Muxian turned his head and looked at a white-clothed man not far away. This man is a doctor in the Imperial League, and basically the newly developed reagents have something to do with him. Taipei Mew is here, I'll get it for you. Dr. Mew lifted his glasses and said, turning to go deep. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. A few minutes later, Dr. Mew came to Da Muxian's body and handed the 6 delicate wooden boxes to Da Muxian. They're all here. Thanks. Da Muxian smiled and took the wooden box. Then he distributed the 6 wooden boxes to Chi Feng and others. Chi Feng took the wooden box and opened it. A tube of reagent thicker than the yellow reagent he had obtained from the twisted shark was lying quietly in the wooden box. This should be the W-type reagent. Afterwards, Da Muxian ordered a staff member to bring a small wooden box over. The small wooden box was handed over to King Chi, but the others did not. Chi Feng swept into the wooden box with his spiritual sense, and a brown ball was lying in it, which seemed to be some kind of medicine. Chi Wang was more happy to get this brown ball than he got the W-type reagent, and quickly thanked Okishen. Da Muxian looked at everyone at this time and said, these are what you deserve. I will send King Chi away first. You can visit here at will. Remember, don't touch anything. Yes. Understand. Then Da Muxian took Chi Wang and left, leaving Chi Feng 5 people behind. It's such a good place, Vicky said with his eyes open after Da Mu walked away. After taking the brand, Chi Feng took a look and put it away. He was really confused and joined the Imperial League, but as long as he can make himself stronger, it doesn't matter. Da Muxian frowned. This Dark Knight legend was about to leave when he first came to the Imperial League. He really regarded himself as a character, even if he was licensed by the Baidi, he couldn't do this, right? About half an hour later, Da Muxian came back when all 5 of them had visited. But Damu Guanxi, we don't know who the deacon of the Imperial League is, Monk Lucia said. Kurosawa Kazunami was also very excited. This place is the dream place of all underground heroes, and everyone who can enter here are all outstanding, but although he has come in, after all, the legend of the night brought him in. I don't have much skill, my heart is quite big, Manshan sneered, no longer paying attention to Kurosawa Yilong. This sentence directly pulled the hot-headed Kurosawa back to reality, and a layer of sweat immediately broke out on his forehead, and he took a few steps back quickly. Oh, Chi Feng smiled, but didn't say anything. Mansion seemed to think he was stronger than himself, but that's fine. People like Mansion are easily complacent. If you dare to attack him, then don't blame him for being rude. Seeing the legend of the night and the wild mountain bickering, the others didn't say a word. Here after the king of Chi left, the legend of the night and the wild mountain are the strongest, how dare they talk nonsense. Chi Feng immediately said, I'm sorry, but I have to leave tomorrow. Forgive me not to stay here for a week. Chi Feng looked at Mansion and asked, why, do you think you are very capable? Suddenly, Manshan turned his head to look at Chi Feng, and said in an unquestionable tone, it's better than you. You put these 5 identity cards of the Imperial League. From today on, you will be members of the headquarters of the Imperial League. With this identity card, you can enter and leave the Imperial League freely. Of course, except for the legend of the night, you can enter and leave freely by the White Emperor. If people want to leave the headquarters, they need to ask me for instructions. If I'm not there, you are the same if you ask the deacons of the Imperial League. After Da Muxian finished this, he handed the white iron plaque with the word Emperor to the 5 people. At this time, Kurosawa came to a shelf and looked at the rows of medicines on it, all of different colors. Just when he was about to touch it with his hand, Mansion said coldly, "Don't you want to live anymore?" Even if the Emperor League will not let him go, Chi Feng will forcefully leave. If the Imperial League cannot even achieve his goal of becoming stronger, then Chi Feng will choose to leave the Imperial League at that time. You don't have to worry about these, I will arrange a place for you in a while, you will know the Emperor League very well after living here for a week. Da Muxian said with a smile. Chapter 184 Back to School. Legend of the Night, you are too presumptuous, Bai Di gave you the right of freedom of entry and exit is not for you to do whatever you want. You just wanted to leave when you first came to the Imperial League. Could it be that your heart is not in the Imperial League at all? Said sarcastically, it would be best to suppress Dark Knight Legend in front of Da Muxian. As long as the Dark Knight Legend is abandoned by the Imperial League, then one less person will share the benefits of the Imperial League. In this way, the strength of the Dark Knight Legend that does not benefit will slow down, and his wild mountain will become stronger and stronger. Da Muxian frowned even heavier when he heard Mansion's words. Although Dark Knight Legend has the permission of Emperor Bai, he can freely enter and leave the Imperial League, but this is just like this when he comes to the Imperial League, and then I will definitely not be that the discipline of the League is in sight. At this moment, Da Muxian wanted to suppress the Legend of the Night, after all, he had this right. If my heart is not in the Imperial League, how can I join the Imperial League? Since the Emperor Bai is optimistic about me and giving me such privileges, I am naturally very grateful to the Emperor Bai. So after tonight I will leave the Imperial League, and you are here to instigate, do you think that Bai Di is farting? Chi Feng said with a wave of his right hand, pointing at Mansion. You, what are you talking about? The boss with his eyes wide open, Mansion stared at Chi Feng angrily. This guy actually spoke upside down and beat him up. Just when the two of them seemed to be about to do something, Da Muxian suddenly shouted, "Shut up, both." Chi Feng didn't speak anymore, his goal had been achieved. After he said this, even Da Muxian had to weigh it up so as not to target him too much. Mansion also honestly shut his mouth, he didn't expect that Dark Knight Legend would have a mouthful. As for other people, they didn't dare to say a word. Here, the 7 sages were able to cruise in the middle level if their strength was blunt. There were too many powerful people in the Imperial League. What Bai Di said naturally counts. The Dark Knight Legend is his business when he wants to leave the Imperial League. As long as the Imperial League has something to find him, he must come back, so don't talk about it anymore. Although Da Muxian said so, but still dissatisfied with Chi Feng. As a newcomer, why should you stay here for a full week? Get acquainted with the Imperial League first, and in the end you will leave tomorrow, which is really too much. It's not that Chi Feng doesn't want to stay, but can't stay at all. School will start in 2 days. After Da Muxian handed out some precautions in the Imperial League and some other items to the 5 people, he arranged accommodation for Chi Feng and others. The residence is not in a semicircular building, but at the back of the building, there is a row of buildings connected to the back. There are high and low, nearly 40 stories high, and 10 stories low. In short, this half a piece of building is connected to the back of the circular building. Chi Feng and Kurosawa Yilong are on the same floor, a 40-floor house, with a few people in the next building. After the accommodation was arranged, Da Muxian left. As long as there is something to do, he will call them directly. Now let Chi Feng and the others adapt by themselves. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Looking at this 200 square meter house, Chi Feng feels pretty good, simple style and full of sense of technology. Most of the room is connected to technology. Just ask a few words, even a robot will give you a refrigerator, the drink is brought to you. After all the dust settled, Chi Feng took a shower and went to bed early. The next day, Chi Feng took the Demeng ID card and boarded the helicopter directly, returned to Tokyo, and then returned to the Hosu City office by car from Tokyo. Nothing happened to the office in the past few days, and then Chi Feng goes straight home. After buying a bunch of food and drinks to go home, Sister Ying's condition is not bad, just complaining that he is boring not at home these days. Sister Ying, take a sip of this. Chi Feng handed the Quirk supplement to Sister Ying. Since the Quirk supplement can restore Quirk in the body, it should also be good for the brain. Inoue Ying believes in Chi Feng very much. When Chi Feng handed her the Quirk supplement, she took a sip without asking, and then her body trembled. How is it? Chi Feng asked expectantly. Inoue Sakura opened her eyes and said, I feel very comfortable and my mind is clear. It's really useful. Chi Feng was secretly delighted. This Quirk supplement is really amazing, just like a plug-in. Since it is useful, Chi Feng will let Sister Ying take a sip every once in a while, which may improve her body and brain. 2 days later, I returned to school. A full month has passed since the sports festival. During this month, the school organized an outing to relieve the pressure of the students. Fortunately, nothing happened on the day of the outing. Boom classmate. Ida Tenya and Midoriya Izuku greeted them quickly. The relationship between them now is much better than before. After all, they have done several missions together, and they have also walked through life and death, so the relationship is naturally much better. Mr. Chi Feng came early. As soon as Midoriya Izuku entered the class, he saw Ida Tenya and Chi Feng chatting. It was okay that Chi Feng didn't say this sentence. Now that I said it, Ida Tenya and Midoriya Izuku stopped talking and seemed to be thinking about something, a little heavy. Oh, Chi Feng, you look very energetic. Ida Tenya saw Chi Feng entering the class and ran over immediately, showing white teeth. Chi Feng felt more relieved when he saw Ida Tenya like this. It didn't take long for Ida Tianqing's thing to pass, but Ida Tenya did not live in the shadow of his brother's accident, but Chi Feng couldn't care less. Ida Tenya looked on the surface. There is nothing wrong with it, but who knows what's going on in my heart. Yo, Izuku-san, you came early today. Ida Tenya beckoned. Come on, everyone. After that incident, I felt panic. Fortunately, the students were able to bear it in their hearts. They didn't seem to be trapped in the sports festival all the time. Chi Feng patted the two on the shoulder and said. The moment Chi Feng saw Shoto Todoroki, he knew that Shoto Todoroki's strength had risen again. It seems that during this period of time, in addition to doing tasks together before, Shoto Todoroki must have worked very hard to exercise himself. Sister Ying, come, eat noodles. Chi Feng took out the beef noodles from the system warehouse and handed them to Sister Ying. Damn, what flashed my eyes? Chi Feng immediately took a gesture and covered his eyes. This bowl of beef noodles was drawn by Chi Feng when he was in the biochemical drug field. He has not eaten it yet, but the toothbrush used by Ida Tenya is very effective. Presumably this kind of food should also be good. Inoue Sakura was also very happy to eat, and praised this noodles as delicious. Soon all the students in the class were almost there, and not long after Chi Feng sat back in his seat, Aizawa Shota lazily walked in. Ha 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 ha. Ida Tenya laughed loudly. Thanks to Mr. Chi Feng, my teeth are already dazzling, even more focused than my own. Everyone is in the same state of mind, it just depends on the adjustment of the mind. At this moment Shoto Todoroki walked in from the door. It's okay, I've been relatively free these days, so I've been thinking about going to school a long time ago. Midoriya Izuku smiled. Chapter 185 Thor Heroes, Morning, everyone. Aizawa Shota greeted him, walked to the podium and scanned the classmates in a circle, and then said with a smile, it seems that everyone looks pretty good, so I'm relieved. Morning, teacher. The students responded enthusiastically. Then, today's Heroes Information Science has a special content. Aizawa Shota hadn't finished saying a word, and the students underneath began to guess, is it possible that Mr. Aizawa is going to do something? Consider, codename, that is the name of Heroes. Actually, this is also related to the Professional Heroes recruitment application, mentioned to you earlier. This recruitment application will have to wait for you to accumulate experience. Years later, it will become effective only after being recognized as combat power. Aizawa Shota patted the table. In other words, this recruitment application, sent to you in the first grade is closer to the professional hero's personal interest in your future prospects. Once this interest weakens before you graduate, it is common to cancel applications unilaterally. In other words, the application received will directly become pressure on us, right? Hagakure Toru asked at this time. Yes, then this is the application result calculated by the school. Aizawa Shota pressed the remote control in his hand, and a row of application results immediately appeared on the screen. The students watched carefully. Chi Feng ranked first, Shoto Todoroki second, Bakugo Katsuki third, Tokiyami Fumikage fourth, Ida Tenya fifth. In previous years, the applications will be more scattered. This year, all applications will be concentrated on 3 people. Aizawa Shota pointed to the top 3 on the screen and said. Ah, it's heaven and earth. Kaminari Denki raised his head and sighed. Professional heroes really have no eyes. Aoyama Yuga said unconvinced. Why is he ranked so low? Chi Feng first, Boom second, Bakugo third, Erlang Shangshang said in surprise. Although the event of the sports festival took place and affected the final result of the sports festival, the strength of Chi Feng is in the eyes of everyone, the strongest group of dark horses, so there will be many people who intend to recruit. Midoriya, you don't have any, Mineta Minoru said, shaking Midoriya Izuku's shoulders with both hands, because your fighting style is so messy, everyone is scared by you. Maybe. Midoriya Izuku didn't know what to say. The result is like this. Regardless of whether you have received an application or not, you have to participate in the so-called workplace experience, Aizawa Shota said flatly. Shoto Todoroki, Ida Tenya, Yayorozu Momo, Midoriya Izuku, and Kirishima Eijiro all looked at Chi Feng at this time. The workplace experience has been experienced several times under the leadership of Chi Feng, and in many cases it was a life of 9 deaths. Leave aside the sports festival event. After the USJ event, you did experience the actual battle with villain earlier than others, but the school hopes that you will experience the professional heroes' activities and get more substantial exercise from it. Aizawa Shota glanced at the classmates and found that some people were very excited, while others were calmer. Especially Shoto Todoroki, Kirishima Eijiro, Yayorozu Momo, Chi Feng, Ida Tenya, and even Midoriya Izuku, who has always been nervous, did not change his expression. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Have these people experienced anything? This is the question in Aizawa Shota's mind. That's why you want to name heroes, Sato Rikido said with a fist. It makes people look forward to it in an instant. Uraraka Ochako shook his small fist. Aizawa Shota continued. Well, although the name of heroes taken now is only tentative, if anyone dares to take it casually, I'll let him see what hell is. Before Aizawa Shota finished the last sentence, Teacher Midnight opened the door and walked in. She writhed in her tights, so that the classmates didn't even listen to what she just said. That sentence. After all, there are many people who got the name of heroes in their student days, and they will be recognized by the world and become professional heroes directly. Midnight came to the podium, and Aizawa Shota glanced at Midnight speechlessly. This guy always wears this way. Well, that's it. As for the taste of naming, it is judged by Teacher Midnight. I have no idea in this regard. Think about what I will become in the future, leave a fixed impression by naming, and then continue to work towards it. This is the so-called named person, such as All Might, I Might. All Might. Midoriya Izuku muttered in his heart, what kind of heroes should he name? Teacher Midnight sent a wipeable white card to everyone, and the writing on it can be corrected even if it is wrong. Chi Feng got the white card and started to write. His quirk is the second coming of Thor, so the name of heroes is conceivable, and he can afford it. I don't know how long it took, and Aizawa Shota was sleeping in a sleeping bag. At this time, Midnight said, the time is almost up. Let's announce it from the person who has already thought about it. After Aoyama Yuga took the stage, he picked up the white card in his hand, and Yuga said, Shining Heroes, I can not stop twinkling. It translates to, I can't stop shining. Aoyama Yuga thinks this name is very good. Teacher Midnight nodded to help Aoyama Yuga revise it, and Aoyama Yuga's hero's name was decided. Next, classmates took to the stage to show the heroes' names they came up with. These heroes' names may accompany a person, so everyone is thinking very hard. Finally, it was Chi Feng's turn. Everyone looked at Chi Feng at this time, wondering what kind of heroes would the dark horse in this class think about. You are the champion of the sports festival. Midnight didn't find Chi Feng at first, but only now. In addition, 3 or 4 of this class are very strong, and they have been compared to other classes in the sports festival. Hey, the sports festival hasn't decided to choose the champion, okay. Bakugo Katsuki said unconvinced first. Such things happened at the sports festival, and even the final champion was not selected. Although Bakugo Katsuki knew that he was not Chi Feng's opponent, he still felt uncomfortable. Midnight didn't care about Bakugo Katsuki at all, just looked at Chi Feng and asked, then what is your hero's name? Thunder God. Chi Feng flashed the white sign in his hand. Does it still need to be said? Thor is coming again. Of course it is the title of Thor Heroes. Only this kind of awesome title is worthy of him. What? Wow, Thor, Chi Feng is so amazing. All the girls in the class screamed for a while, and Yaoyorozu Momo looked at Chi Feng in amazement. His cheeks were still red, he was really a hockey man. Midnight was also taken aback. The title of Thor is very scary to be associated with the word God. If you have the ability to take on this title, it's okay. If an incompetent person assumes the title of heroes with the word God, he may die. Midnight doesn't know what Chi Feng's specific strength is, but Chi Feng is only in the first grade. It is too trivial to assume this title. You can't afford this title. Change to another one, Midnight said directly. Chi Feng waved his hand, only this title is worthy of me. At this time, Midnight's gaze was opposite to Chi Feng. From Chi Feng's eyes, Midnight saw his self-confidence. After a long time, Midnight had to sigh. Did you really think about it? Yes, I am heroes, Chi Feng said firmly. Chapter 186 Workplace Experience. In the end, Teacher Midnight could only acquiesce. Considering Chi Feng's strength and potential, the title of heroes may be worthy of its name sooner or later, but it will take time to verify. Bakugo Katsuki couldn't wait a long time, and after rushing to the stage, he revealed the name of the heroes he thought of. Blast King. I advise you not to use this, Midnight said flatly. Why? Chi Feng can use the title of Thor Heroes, why is it not working for me? Bakugo Katsuki said dissatisfied. Everything has to be done within our power. Classmate Chi Feng can barely afford that title. Just like Yaoyorozu Momo, she can also afford the title of Daughter of Creation. Midnight stroked his forehead. How could it be so troublesome to explain? Damn it, do you mean my strength is very weak? Bakugo Katsuki was about to explode, and others got such a handsome name, and he couldn't do it. Bakugo, I want to sleep again. Aizawa Shota, who was sleeping against the wall, didn't open his eyes. After just saying a few words, Bakugo Katsuki felt a bit of coolness behind him, so he went on angrily. When everyone in the class basically took their hero's name, Aizawa Shota stood up lazily, removed her sleeping bag and said, okay, now that everyone has decided on the hero's name, go back to the workplace. On the topic of experience, it lasts for a week. As for the key workplace locations, I will send the list to the students who received the application later. You can choose among them. As for the students who have not received the application, the school has entrusted the whole country in advance. 40 offices from all over the world are here to receive you, and you can choose one of them. Professional heroes have different areas of activity and areas of expertise. For example, on the 13th, he is still more adept at saving lives in accidents and disasters than against villain. Midnight explained his personal experience. Area of expertise. You must think carefully before making a decision. Aizawa Shota exhorted at last. Yes. The students responded. After class, Chi Feng was in a daze. There were so many applications from the firm this time, which was half more than Shoto Todoroki. Looking at the densely packed words on the list, Chi Feng's head is a little big. He really doesn't know which office to go to. Fortunately, there are 2 days to consider, so Chi Feng is not in a hurry. You can take a good look when you go home at night. As for where others will go, Chi Feng still knows. Midoriya Izuku will go to Heroes Gran Torino. Ida Tenya will go to the office where his brother Ida Tianqing stays, and Uraraka Ochako will go to the office where the hero's musket head is fighting. After school, Chi Feng went back to the room to lie down after dinner with Sister Ying at home, and looked at the office list carefully with his hands. Looking at it row by row, except for some well-known firms, all other firms have never heard of it. Those well-known firms such as the top 10 heroes firms, those heroes firms Chi Feng didn't want to go, but other firms Chi Feng hadn't heard of it. Although Chi Feng knew that he couldn't learn anything during the work experience this week, but it can't be wasted. Chao Bei office? Chi Feng's eyes lit up, as if he had seen some incredible office. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chao Bei office, if Chi Feng guessed right, it should be the office of Chao Beichao, the third emperor of heroes underground in Shibuya. Otherwise, Chao Bei office will do. Just in case, make a call. Chi Feng picked up his mobile phone and called the Chao Bei office. Moses, a man's voice came on the other end of the phone. Excuse me, what is the name of the president of your Chao Bei office? Chi Feng asked straightforwardly. A puzzled voice came from the other end of the phone. Who are you? Oh, forgot to mention, your firm has initiated an application to me, and I am choosing a firm for job experience. By the way, I am a freshman in UA High School. My name is Chi Feng. That's right, I will really come. The man on the other end of the phone exclaimed in surprise. Chi Feng was taken aback for a moment. What this guy said seemed to have a hunch, but he was so surprised that it was beyond the scope of his understanding. Is there any problem? Chi Feng asked. No, but I want to tell you in advance that our firm is a Samsung firm, and judging from your performance and strength, you can go directly to a better firm. Do you want to think about it again? The man asked politely. You just need to tell me what your president is called, and I will consider the others. Chi Feng doesn't care about the level of the firm, but the person. The president of our firm is Chao Beichao, you may not know. Well, I'll report in 2 days and tell me the address. Chi Feng interrupted the person directly, and as he thought, this office belongs to Chao Beichao, the third emperor in Shibuya. For Chao Beichao, Chi Feng needs textual research. Is it just what he thinks in the end? Did you agree? The man said in surprise. Yes, you tell me the address soon, Chi Feng urged. Okay, wait a minute. After asking for the address, Chi Feng hung up the phone. This time the professional hero's experience was unexpected, and Chao Beichao would actually extend an olive branch to him. However, Chi Feng knows that this Chao Bei firm is actually the same as his horror-like firm. On the face of it, it is a regular firm. To put it bluntly, it is just to conceal the public, and it is considered a legitimate firm. Chao Beichao, a Taoist priest who saw the dragon but did not see the end. Chi Feng joined the underground heroes and hasn't seen one in these time, but the first emperor of the gods hurriedly met. 2 days later, Chi Feng packed his things and brought his combat suit. The combat suit was made by the school. It was useless for Chi Feng at this time, but Aizawa Shota said that he must bring it, so Chi Feng had to take it. Everyone, did you bring the combat suit? Aizawa Shota asked in the station. You can wear the combat suit in public, don't lose it. Yes. The students responded. Be careful to be polite to the heroes in the experience place. Okay, let's go. Aizawa Shota finally exhorted. The students are very excited. The professional heroes experience they have been waiting for a long time, and they can finally try it today. Mr. Ida, please contact me if you have anything to do. Chi Feng took a picture of Ida Tenya, who was about to leave. Although I don't know if Stain's incident will happen truthfully, he still has to warn him. Ida Tenya turned his head and looked at Chi Feng not speaking, nodded after 10 seconds and then turned and left. Chi Feng stopped Midoriya Izuku again. Brother Midoriya, let me know as soon as anything happens, remember. What will happen to the professional heroes experience? Midoriya Izuku asked suspiciously. Don't worry about anything. Anyway, if you encounter something you can't resist, just contact me. Chi Feng smiled, then turned his head and left. Chi Feng is a little weird today. Uraraka Ochako, standing next to Midoriya Izuku, said. Yes, it's strange. Midoriya Izuku stared at Chi Feng's back, and then bid farewell to Uraraka Ochako and left. He must seize this opportunity to improve his strength in the workplace experience. Chapter 187 Chao Beichao. Chi Feng was a little speechless standing on a hillside. This is the outskirts of the Kanagawa boundary. The address given by Chao Bei office is here, but the building in front of Chi Feng is a dilapidated Taoist temple. It is written on the Taoist temple. The 5 words, Chao Bei office. Except for the 5 words of Chao Bei office that can be seen to be new, this dilapidated Taoist temple has at least 100 years of history. Does Chi Feng wonder if Chao Beichao lives in this place every day? Is there anyone? Chi Feng called directly. Chao Beichao is from China, so there is no need to be so polite. Who is yelling at the door in broad daylight? A voice came, seeming to be a little older. Then Chi Feng saw an old man wearing a gray robes come out. He still held an 8 trigrams plate in his hand and looked at Chi Feng without waking up. Chi Feng was taken aback, and he felt a familiar aura from this old Taoist body. Chi Feng was really familiar with it, it was aura. Sure enough, this guy has practiced, so there are people in this world who have cultivated immortals. Chi Feng was horrified, but also very excited. This old Wei should be the third emperor Chao Beichao. Since Chao Beichao can practice, then there should be a better training treasure, otherwise it would be impossible for Chao Beichao to cultivate to this point. Yes, and Chi Feng, the opponent's cultivation base, couldn't see through it all, and was definitely much better than himself. Old Wei, are you Chao Beichao? Chi Feng asked directly. The old Dao immediately cursed. This is how you talk to your elders. Didn't your teacher teach you how to be polite to your elders? Okay, don't talk about it, we are all Chinese, there is no need to engage in some of these. Chi Feng waved his hand and walked directly into the Taoist temple. There is almost nothing in Taoist temple, only a table and 2 stools are new, there are already spider webs in other places. Now Chi Feng can be sure that this place is the temporary office location of Chao Beichao, and no one has been here for at least many years, and it has long been deserted. Hey, kid, you can't hide from others, but you can't hide from me. From the time you came here, I found out that you have practiced. Although you have reduced your breath after seeing me, you can't hide it from my eyes. Chao Beichao hee with a smile, he walked into the Taoist temple. You can find all of this? Chi Feng was surprised. When he didn't see Chao Beichao, Chi Feng did not hide his cultivation level, because no one in this world can see that he is on the 4th level of Qi training, and Chao Beichao is different. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. You want to hide your 4th level Qi training base from the old man? Chao Beichao said disdainfully, and took out the stool when he came to Chi Feng. After sitting down, he said, but you did surprise me. I just know that you are from China and the quirk is very strong. I want to mention you. Now it seems that you are very malleable. You have already practiced the 4th level of Qi at a young age. I just started practicing Qi at this time, it's really scary. Chi Feng immediately became interested. After sitting down, he asked, Senior, what is your current cultivation level? Successful training, just 1 step away from building a foundation. Chao Beichao said proudly, but his eyes dimmed after speaking, a little decadent. Perfect Qi training. Chi Feng was shocked. The state of perfect Qi training had not been reached in Chi Feng's previous life. At the beginning, Chi Feng was the pinnacle of Qi training, but Chao Beichao was able to cultivate to perfect Qi in this place. Then, what's the use of perfect Qi training? I won't be able to advance to a higher level in my life. Chao Beichao sighed, as if recalling those hard years. Chi Feng didn't know what Chao Beichao was thinking, but he said directly, Senior, you have better luck, but I have a way to get you into the base construction period. After you enter the base construction period, you should be able to compete with Shenquan, right? Chao Beichao's practice method must not be compared with Chi Feng's. Chi Feng's ancient practice method can attract thunder during the foundation period, and Chao Beichao's promotion to the foundation period is an instant thing, except to become stronger. In addition, it will not attract thunder and robbery. This is. Chao Beichao's eyes widened. There is a strong aura in this pitch black ball, which is definitely a good thing. This is no problem at all. I will take you to the best place to practice. Based on your qualifications, it will take you to complete Qi training. Chao Beichao smiled. As for what I said just now, it will not take long to achieve perfect Qi training. It's just flicking Chi Feng, it won't be long, at least 10 years later. Not wanting Laozi to help you build the foundation, Chi Feng smiled in his heart, but said calmly on the surface. I want you to take me to a place with strong spiritual energy. With your strong vitality, it must be absorbed over the years. Caused by aura. Chi Feng said he couldn't stop him when he tried his best to leave. This kind of remark was just to deceive the children. Even if the quirk tried to escape from him, it would be a delusion. Chi Feng also sneered, there is still a difference between the completion of Qi training and the foundation building period. Although I practice the 4th level of Qi, but the quirk is very strong, at your speed, if I try to go with all my strength, you may not be able to stop it. Wait, you are not afraid that I will kill you when you talk to me like this? Chao Beichao sneered. The emperor is far away from the mountain, even if you kill you, Yue High School will not find me if you know it. Yes, you heard that right. I can indeed allow you to quickly enter the foundation building period, but you must promise me one condition. Chi Feng smiled, it is impossible for him to build the foundation for nothing. Huh, just a kid, the old man almost believed in your evil. Chao Beichao slapped the table, and Yuan Li instantly slapped the table into scraps. Chi Feng breathed a sigh of relief. He really didn't want to fall out with this old man. After all, there might only be a monk named Chao Beichao in the world. What a strong power. Chi Feng took a few steps back in a startled heart. This palm seems to be very simple. But Chi Feng can feel that Chao Beichao's vitality is very solid. This guy is definitely stuck in training for many years. Up. The school allows you to experience the workplace, but you chose to come to me. You must have heard a lot about me. Do you know who I am? Chao Beichao asked. What are you talking about? Chao Beichao stood up in shock. His cultivation level has been stuck in Qi training for decades. Now this kid actually said that he would be able to advance to the foundation building stage. What is he kidding? Since you don't believe it, then forget it. Originally, I thought you were a witty predecessor. I didn't expect you to be a foolish man, so I'll leave. Chi Feng hugged his fists and left. Well, since you know all about it, then I won't be oblivious. As long as you can make me advance to the foundation building period, I will satisfy you with whatever you ask. Xiao Beichao said with eager eyes. Chi Feng didn't know whether what Xiao Beichao said was true or false. In short, since Xiao Beichao agreed, Chi Feng naturally had nothing to say, and directly took out a dark ball from his arms. Yes, the third emperor of Shibuya, Chi Feng said directly. Xiao Beichao stared at Chi Feng for a few seconds, then suddenly laughed. Good boy. I didn't miss you, sit down. Chapter 188. This is the foundation pill. One of the peculiar pill left by my ancestors will allow you to enter the foundation building period. The value of it will not be exchanged for even a golden mountain. Chi Feng exaggerated, the pitch black pill. He couldn't be more clear that it was the chi pill that was drawn during the biochemical poison field, and it is useless now. At this time, it happened to be Xiao Beichao that he owed himself a great favor. Zhu Jiden. Xiao Beichao shouted with bright eyes. For many years, there has been nothing to make him so excited. Whether it is money or rights, he dismisses it. Only building a foundation is his life. Willing. Underground Heroes knows that he sees the end of the dragon, not because he wants to leave the sight of everyone, but because he is looking for a way to build a foundation in different countries and places, but after so many years have passed, he is looking for no results for several countries. If this continues, even if he can live to be more than 100 years old, searching all countries will not necessarily find a way for him to build a foundation. Now that a Zhu Jiden lies quietly in Chi Feng's hands, he can immediately perceive that this is a real good thing, and it will definitely allow him to advance to the foundation construction period. Yes, this is the Jiden. Originally, the ancestors meant that any disciple who could cultivate to the perfect Qi training could eat this Jiden, but my ancestors were very poorly qualified and couldn't cultivate to the fullest. I am full of anger, and only become better in my generation of qualifications, so this Jiden is useless so far, but it is cheaper for you. Chi Feng said very sadly, as if it were really ordinary. Ah, this Jiden will not expire, right? Xiao Beichao's expression is a bit difficult to look like. This is all Chi Feng's ancestors. At least 100 years have passed. Even if the Jiden is better, 100 years have passed. It will lose its efficacy and eventually become a waste pill. Your uncles? Chi Feng cursed in his heart. After talking for a long time, the old man actually cared about whether Zujiden had expired. He co-authored so much and said it all in vain. Don't worry, if you can't build the foundation after eating this, then my request will be treated as a waste, and you don't lose anything. How about it? Chi Feng had to say this, and waited until Xiao Beichao built the foundation. Well, if the old man succeeds in building the foundation, your good days will come. Xiao Beichao laughed and took away the chi pill from Chi Feng, and then exhorted, go outside and help me protect the law. Chi Feng took a bench and walked outside the Taoist temple speechlessly. There can be a fart in this place, and he also protects the law. Xiao Beichao directly ate the chi pill with excitement, and in just an instant, he felt the barrier of the foundation building period. Sure enough, Jiden. Xiao Beichao was so excited that he immediately sat cross-legged, and under the operation of the practice technique, some thin auras around him quickly gathered towards Xiao Beichao's body. At dusk, when Chi Feng was about to fall asleep, he heard a long roar from the Taoist temple, and then an invisible force rushed out of the door, almost breaking the stool that Chi Feng was sitting on. Ha ha ha, I made it, old man, I actually made it. Xiao Beichao's excited voice came and he flew out of the Taoist temple. It was a gliding instead of flying. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Xiao Beichao's promotion to the base building period was within Chi Feng's expectation. Although he gave Xiao Beichao the Qi training dan, the effect is actually similar to that of the Ji dan. The main reason is that Xiao Beichao's body has been Xiao Beichao's experience over the years. The cultivation base has long been stuck in perfect Qi training, but it's just missing an opportunity. The spirit of heaven and earth has long been unable to allow Xiao Beichao to break through the cultivation base barrier during the Qi training period, and the Qi pill given by Chi Feng is an elixir that instantly impacts the gap in the cultivation base, and can also instantly enhance the cultivation base. This kind of pill is only necessary for Xiao. If Beichao eats it, no matter how low the efficacy of the medicine is, it can help Xiao Beichao enter the base building period. Well, I didn't lie to you. Chi Feng stood up and felt that Xiao Beichao seemed to be 10 years younger. He looked at least 60 years old before, but now he looks like a 50-year-old middle-aged man. Yes, your name is Chi Feng, right? I owe you a great favor. I don't talk nonsense. Now I will take you to the place where I practice on weekdays. At present in the island, I only found that this one is slightly better. As for other places, I didn't dare to go during my Qi refining period. It's too dangerous. Now it doesn't matter, but I need a solid cultivation base, so you can go with me. Xiao Beichao laughed. Dao Paoyi the wave is to glide towards the distance. Chi Feng immediately followed. The old man was so fast, he had to follow him closely. I didn't do anything that day, just to help Xiao Beichao build the foundation. An hour later, Chi Feng felt a little tired, and asked Xiao Beichao, who was still gliding ahead, how long will it be? Xiao Beichao stopped suddenly. Chi Feng asked in confusion. What's the matter? Let's go there by car, it's far away, at the border of Kanagawa, we can't reach it at this speed alone, Xiao Beichao said. Damn, didn't you say it earlier? Chi Feng was about to vomit blood. Cooperating with you is that you are very excited about the success of building the foundation, and then you want to feel the changes in your body and just take me for an hour? No, we are a lot closer to there, and we will be there soon. Xiao Beichao said embarrassingly. He did the same as Chi Feng said, in order to allow the body to adapt to the foundation period, and the same. It is to feel the physical fitness during the foundation building period. Chi Feng really wanted to beat up this old man. This old man knew he only had 1 week of work experience, and as a result, he wasted so much time. If he didn't ask for Xiao Beichao, he would not come to this old man. In the end, the two of them packed a car to the place Xiao Beichao said, and arrived at the destination 1 hour later, but Xiao Beichao said that he didn't bring any money. Chi Feng took a look at the guy and found that he really didn't bring any money. After paying the money, Chi Feng was already very dissatisfied with Xiao Beichao. He went out without money. How did this guy live so big? We still need to go inside for half an hour to get there. Xiao Beichao pointed to the dense forest in the distance and said. Stop talking nonsense, quickly lead the way, I'm already very tired. Chi Feng didn't want to talk to this old man. Keep up. Xiao Beichao quickly leapt towards the distance, extremely fast. Chi Feng quickly followed up, and after working for a long time, he was finally about to gain something. He had been stuck in the 4th layer of Chi training for a while, so he could take advantage of these days to practice well. After passing through the dense mountain forest, Chao Bei Bridge stopped after half an hour. In front of Chi Feng's eyes was a small waterfall. The water rushed down from the mountain, forming a small lake in the low-lying area, and Chi Feng found that the aura is better than that. It is much stronger from the outside world. Come with me. Xiao Beichao jumped onto the water, and directly stepped on the water to rush into the waterfall that was falling down the torrent. Chi Feng saw Xiao Beichao enter the waterfall and followed in the same way. This is Shui Li Dongtian. After Chi Feng came in, he discovered that there was a cave inside the waterfall, and the aura inside it was at least twice as strong as the outside world. How about it, isn't it good here? Xiao Beichao smiled. It's okay, but if it's just like this, I think it's very general, Chi Feng said dismissively. Although this kind of spiritual energy concentration is much stronger than the outside world, it doesn't catch him. You are picky, kid, come in, it will surprise you. Xiao Beichao walked in. Chapter 189. Hurry up and teach me spells. Chi Feng followed behind Xiao Beichao. The more he walked in, the stronger his aura became. After a few minutes, Chi Feng's eyes suddenly opened up. An ray of light shone from above. Chi Feng looked up, and there was floating water on it, that is, the flow of the waterfall. But this water flow is suspended at the top, like a bowl that has no bottom but can hold water. And the spiritual energy here is at least 5 times stronger than before, and it is already possible to cultivate at this level. In this kind of world, it is not easy to have such a training treasure, and it is a great opportunity for Xiao Beichao to find it. What's going on? Chi Feng pointed at the water floating above in confusion. Xiao Beichao smiled and said, I don't know. In short, the aura comes down from the suspended water above, and I don't know the principle. As soon as Chi Feng wanted to jump up and have a look, Xiao Beichao immediately stopped Chi Feng. Don't try to see, there is a formation on it, it will hurt you. What, there is a formation method? Chi Feng was taken aback, that is to say, this world has at least been a strong person before, even the formation method can be arranged, it is at least a monk in the Golden Core period. Yes, I just heard the formation from my ancestors. As for seeing, it is the first time. Xiao Beichao was also very surprised when he came here for the first time, and he was injured once by the protective measures of this formation. So knowing how powerful this formation is, even if he builds the foundation at this time, he dare not touch that formation. Chi Feng nodded, walked to that place and sat cross-legged under the light, and began to run the exercises to absorb the spiritual energy. Xiao Beichao also sat down and began to consolidate his cultivation. The two were silent. Time passed in this minute and 1 second, but they did not know that a pair of big red eyes were staring at them in the distance. At this moment, other heroes students in the A class are beginning to experience the workplace. Like Chi Feng, they are doing something that has nothing to do with the workplace experience. There is no one at all. I am afraid that only Chi Feng is the case. Midoriya Izuku also saw Gran Torino. Although Gran Torino was a little confused, this did not prevent him from teaching Midoriya Izuku combat techniques and the means of controlling power. And Chi Feng knew that 80% of Gran Torino's confusion was pretended. As a former teacher of All Might, Gran Torino's strength is beyond doubt. It is easy to teach young people like Midoriya Izuku. But everything requires Midoriya Izuku to think and feel it on his own. No one else can help. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Originally, Chi Feng wanted to give more pointers to Midoriya Izuku, but as a classmate, Chi Feng felt inappropriate, and as a Legend of the Night is also inappropriate. After all, Gran Torino is the most appropriate to teach Midoriya Izuku. In addition, Midoriya Izuku has carried out several life and death missions, and has even been in the ring. At this time, he has touched some thresholds for power control. As long as Gran Torino gives pointers, Brother Midoriya should soon be able to master the method of power control. As for others, they will also gain a lot from this workplace experience. However, no matter how fruitful the fruit is, it is not as great as Chi Feng's harvest at this moment. In just one night, Chi Feng's cultivation level broke through to the 5th level of Chi training. This is the reason why he is relatively stable on the 4th level of Chi training and then the speed of cultivation. It started to slow down. Chi Feng estimated that if he practiced at this speed, if he did this every day, he could be promoted to the 6th level of Chi training in 1 month. However, I have to go to school. Even though school will be over at night, it will take at least 3 hours to get here from UA High School, and it takes 6 hours to go back and forth. Then I have to rush back to school before dawn. This is too much effort. And in this way, Chi Feng couldn't even see Sister Ying. On the next night, when Chi Feng was steadily practicing the 5th level of Chi cultivation, he suddenly felt a chill behind him, and immediately raised his hand and thundered out with a thunder arc. Roar! A roar awakened Xiao Beiqiao, who was cultivating, and he saw a huge python twisting left and right, as if he had been injured by Chi Feng's attack. What a big python! Chi Feng stood up. The python in front of him had red eyes and the width of his body was comparable to that of a train. Quick, teach me spells. Xiao Beiqiao excitedly held Chi Feng's shoulders with his hands, and said with a trembling tone. Forget it, you don't know, I'll explain it to you. Chi Feng began to instill various low-level monk spells into Xiao Beiqiao. Xiao Beiqiao's eyes widened after hearing this. In the end, his mouth opened wide. Damn, you old man is really a fake monk, he doesn't even know the fireball technique. Chi Feng looked at Xiao Beiqiao with contempt. In addition to his cultivation skills, he even had a monk's spells. I don't know how to release it, really a fake monk. And here is such a big python, where there are generally large creatures appearing, it means that there are some natural treasures, so these fierce beasts will guard the surroundings, waiting for the maturity of the natural treasures. Chi Feng got some wood back from the outside and made a grill. The rest of the wood was used as firewood. Then he threw a fireball on the wood and it burned immediately. Fireball? Xiao Beiqiao looked at Chi Feng suspiciously, not knowing what he was talking about. Isn't your quirk thunder and lightning, how could it set fire? Xiao Beiqiao looked at Chi Feng in surprise, which made him puzzled. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chinese MTL fan fiction, second element novel can be read at hotmtl novel for free. When a white pike appeared, Chi Feng could feel the power of this pike. If he faced this blow, he would have to resist. Xiao Beiqiao thought about this, and Chi Feng also thought about it. It seems that the depths of this cave are not that there is nothing, but that there is a big secret. Xiao Beiqiao nodded and said, this python must have absorbed aura here for many years, so it has grown so big, but the aura alone is not enough, so there seems to be a secret here. I haven't eaten snake meat for a long time. Today, I will open the meat. Xiao Beiqiao laughed and turned off the topic. Suddenly he took out a handle of Buddha dust from the robe and waved it directly at the python's neck. Chi Feng was taken aback, and asked suspiciously, this is fireball, can't you see it? Now that Chi Feng talks about fireball skills, he is even more curious. Is it possible that Chi Feng, a monk with a lower cultivation level, knows more things than him? The head of the python was directly severed, and the body was still twisting constantly due to pain, and some stones on the stone wall were slapped to the ground. Originally, Xiao Beiqiao wanted to ignite the fire with the Buddha dust in his hand, because his Buddha dust can produce flames, so he said about eating snake meat. Now Chi Feng directly throws a fireball, he is naturally very surprised. Pouch. Chi Feng suddenly understood that this kind of place cannot have a strong aura for no reason, even if it is impossible for a former strong person to set up a formation here. This formation is to block the flow of water and the aura, but it is not a cohesion. Reiki's formation. Chapter 190. Chi Feng looked at Xiao Beiqiao, who was in excitement speechlessly. You are a senior, so you want me to teach you spells? It's okay, the expert is the first. Since you know more than me, you should ask you. Xiao Beiqiao chuckled, very polite. But I am not obligated to teach you. I am here to find you to experience in the workplace, not to teach you low-level spells. You have to figure it out. Chi Feng didn't bother to talk to him, this old guy is really not serious. I brought you to such a good place to practice, don't you teach me the spells and you have a conscience to go? Xiao Beiqiao is a little irritable. Why is this little guy so difficult to fool? Chi Feng is unhappy. I help you build the foundation. Can you build the foundation without my foundation? You just brought me to the place where you usually practice. It's no secret, except for you and me. No one else can practice, and now you still want me to teach you spells. What can you do without showing some sincerity? After hearing this, Xiao Beiqiao felt reasonable, and immediately began to have a headache. This kid is actually still sincere, so it's really hard to wait. A minute later, Xiao Beiqiao said helplessly, what kind of sincerity do you want? Be my thug. Chi Feng said directly with a smile. What, with such a distinguished identity, do you want me to help you as a thug? Xiao Beiqiao exclaimed angrily, impossible. Then it will be there. Chi Feng said and made a small fire at his fingertips, and the flame was constantly beating with Xiao Beiqiao's heart at his fingertips. 1 second, 2 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes. Okay, the old man promised you, a spell will help you hit someone, that's it. Xiao Beiqiao finally compromised. Chi Feng smiled, skewered a piece of snake meat on the grill, put it in front of his nose and smelled it. It was definitely good snake meat. It might increase cultivation after eating it. One spell, 3 people, Chi Feng said with 3 fingers raised after taking a bite of snake meat. No, 2 people at most, Xiao Beichao said, shaking his head. 4 people. Chi Feng added another. Xiao Beichao really wanted to beat Chi Feng, but he still held back. According to the next development, Chi Feng will definitely say 5 people, so he just agreed directly. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Then 4 people. Xiao Beichao compromised. Okay, deal. Chi Feng chuckled, and took out his own fireball technique practice method from his arms. This low-level spell is actually very simple, as long as you see the practice method, you can master it. Sure enough, Xiao Beichao excitedly accepted the fireball technique training method that Chi Feng gave him, and ran not far away to start practicing. It didn't take long for a fireball to appear in his palm, but he threw it suddenly and immediately hit the stone wall. Burn out a piece of scorched black. It's so simple. Xiao Beichao felt that he had been pitted. With just such a simple spell, he had to help the kid Chi Feng fight 4 times. It was a shame. Chi Feng ate the snake meat happily. He felt that the aura contained in the snake meat was abundant. It must be because the python has been absorbing the aura for years. The aura has completely entered the cells in flesh and blood, so Chi Feng just eats it. I can feel it immediately. After eating enough, Chi Feng immediately began to meditate and practice, and suddenly found that the speed of cultivation had become much faster, and he quickly absorbed the aura around him. Early the next morning, Xiao Beichao called out, "Okay, don't practice. I have consolidated the foundation building period, now we can go out." Chi Feng opened his eyes, looked at Xiao Beichao questioningly and asked, "Where to go?" "Where to go?" Xiao Beichao chuckled, of course he touched gold. Chi Feng was taken aback. Touching for gold? Xiao Beichao touched the gray beard on his chin and said, "A kid is a kid. I don't even know what it is to touch gold. I have only touched gold in these years, and I have been there for 4 or 5 years. It's a place, and the harvest is pretty good. My 8 trigrams plate was touched by gold, and it's even more inseparable from it up to now." Chi Feng thinks about it and thinks it's okay. After all, Xiao Beichao found the place, and Xiao Beichao's current strength is much stronger than him. Even if it is in danger, it should be able to resolve it. Chi Feng wanted to laugh at first, but when he saw Xiao Beichao's serious expression of confidence, he finally held back his laugh. Xiao Beichao is a little bit painful, he really doesn't dare to go there alone. At least he has to take one person. Besides, Chi Feng is also a monk, and he belongs to half of his family. There is a saying that the fat water does not flow into the field of outsiders, who to take. I didn't take this kid to go. You said that you have gained a lot, but I think your clothes are still so tattered and you feel very poor. Chi Feng looked up and down Xiao Beichao. His robe feels like decades of time. What are you dreaming about? Of course, it's me 7 and 3. Xiao Beichao said silently. He took most of the place where he took, and he was responsible for most of the danger. This kid is very ambitious and wants to score 7 points. But he knows the good things in the tomb. Some things are very sophisticated. If you get 1 or 2 of them, it is definitely a big killer. The ancient things are good, so they are buried in the ground, and some are destroyed. I can't find it anymore. Well, 6 or 4 points. I am 6 and 4, right? Xiao Beichao said with some pain, and the cutout was like cutting a piece of meat from him. Then lousy won't go anymore, only 3 points, in case I die there, I won't lose a lot. Chi Feng waved his hand and sat on the ground to continue practicing. Don't look old-fashioned, the old man didn't say such things. You said it. It's really cheap for you kid. Xiao Beichao tweeted, and then walked out of the cave. He said that he hadn't gone to the grave for a while. Baby. All right, for the sake of meeting you and me, let's lead the way. Chi Feng stood up. Chi Feng smiled. Well, the workplace experience is meaningless to me. If you have a suitable tomb, you can go and see it, but I tell you that this kind of tomb must be old. If you go to dig someone's ancestral grave, then I will not accompany you. Chi Feng came to understand at this moment. Touch Jin Xiao Wei Xiao Beichao? Ha 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 ha, Chi Feng laughed, pointing to Xiao Beichao and said, "You old man robs the tomb when you say robbing the tomb. You touch the gold if you touch it, it sounds so nice. Do you think I am the kind of unscrupulous Taoist priest? I can't do anything about digging out people's ancestral graves, but I found a more interesting place some time ago, but it's a bit dangerous. I didn't dare to go in alone, just because you were there. Come with me, let's score 3 or 7 for things, how about it?" Xiao Beichao said invitingly. Roll the calf. Xiao Beichao yelled before murmuring to himself, touching Captain Jin sounds good, very good. From now on, I will be Captain Touching Jin. What do you know? Don't you know if your wealth is exposed? Will I tell you that I have a sea view room by the sea and a hot spring at the foot of the volcano? Xiao Beichao said disdainfully, his money gone. 3 or 7 points, I am 7 and you 3? Chi Feng asked. Chapter 191. The tomb. The population of the island country is pitifully small compared to a large country such as China. But a small population does not mean that there are no tombs. It's just that many of these tombs are under state protection. Generally, wild tombs that have not been discovered. Such kind of tombs need to be touched by Captain Jin. However, people like Chao Beichao are not touching Captain Jin at all, but relying on his cultivation base to forcibly lift the tomb. Without this cultivation base, I am afraid that the things in the tomb will kill him. No matter in this life or in the previous life, Chi Feng knows that there are things in the tomb, perhaps heroic spirits, or remnants of ghosts, and mortals can't see these things, but they can be affected by these things, leading to die prematurely. But the monks can see the ghosts with their divine knowledge. Even without divine knowledge, they can see these things. Chao Baichao has entered the tomb many times before entering the foundation construction period. Now it is the foundation construction period, presumably the divine consciousness has also opened up on its own. There are almost no monks such as Chi Feng who develop spiritual consciousness at the 4th level of Qi training. The ancient exercises and Chao Beichao's practice are not comparable at all. So from a certain perspective, as long as Chi Feng cultivates to the foundation building stage, his strength will be several times stronger than Zhou North Bridge. The two were shuttled between the mountains and forests, and when they arrived on the highway, they stopped a car. The old routine paid double the price and asked the driver to take it to the designated place. About 2 hours later, the car stopped in a deserted place. The driver quickly took the money and sent Chi Feng away. No one would come to this kind of ghost place. Why did you encounter these two today? Fateful guy. It's a little weird here. After the car left, Chi Feng looked at the deserted land around him, and in front of him was a bare mountain. Only some withered trees took root on the mountain, and there were no birds. Well, you can feel it too. The yin qi here is much more than the outside world. It is said that this place used to be a mass grave. Chao Baichao smiled, intending to scare Chi Feng. Chi Feng disapprovingly said, "What good things can there be in the mass graves? The essence here is the gathering place for grievances. There are no flowers. Did you make a mistake?" Seeing Chi Feng's expression of contempt, Chao Beichao's mouth twitched, and he said a little bit irritably, "Who said that there are only mass graves here? Mass graves are just for cover, a real good thing. It's in this place." "Then hurry up, my time is very precious, not as leisurely as you are always." Chi Feng waved his hand and said, "Do you believe me beating the old man?" Chao Beichao found that the boy was getting more and more beating. "Dare not dare." Chi Feng stretched out his hand and made a pleased gesture. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chao Beichao flew forward with a wave of his robe, and fell on a dead tree after a few moves. He turned to look at Chi Feng in the distance and said, "Quickly follow." 10 minutes later, Chi Feng and Chao Beichao both stopped. Now they're in a basin surrounded by mountains. Standing outside the basin and looking down, they saw a pile of bones filling the bottom of the basin. Nothing but bones. "It seems that this place has existed for a long time. Are you sure it is this place?" Chi Feng turned to look at Chao Beichao. "Yes, the bones are just a cover. You look at it." After Chao Beichao finished speaking, with a wave of his right hand, a fireball that was twice the size of Chi Feng's original fireball was condensed and formed in his hand, and then he threw it towards him. Lost that pile of bones. The bones were lit in a moment, and the raging fire covered all these hundreds of bones, and in a moment they burned to ashes. Chi Feng didn't wait for Chao Beichao to start his hand. With a wave of his right hand, a strong wind directly blew the ashes outside. After the ashes disappeared, a dark wooden cassette appeared in the middle of the basin, which was large enough for two people to enter at the same time. "Are you a spell again?" Chao Beichao looked at Chi Feng with his eyes wide open. "This is fire and wind." Sure enough, cultivation is much stronger than quirk training. Although his quirk is not bad, it is compared to Chi Feng. Feng's spells are a bit worse. Otherwise, Chi Feng said with a smile, "The path of cultivation is extremely difficult. There are thousands of spells, and what I have mastered is the most basic. The 5 element spells, wood, water, fire and earth, fireball, and windblade, only it's just one of the most basic spells. What you used just now was windblade." Chao Beichao's heart became hot. If he mastered the 5 element spells that Chi Feng said, then his strength would rise by another level. Even if the tomb was robbed, it would get twice the result with half the effort. "This is the windblade." Chi Feng waved his right hand forward, and a white blade light appeared, which made a deep mark on the back of the mountain. "Wonderful, teach me," Chao Beichao said immediately. "What's the hurry? Let's go down and have a look first. As for teaching you, it depends on your performance," Chi Feng said with a smile. Chao Beichao thought in his heart, after successfully getting the things in the tomb this time, if the things are rubbish, even if they are divided into 5 to 5 with Chi Feng, it is just to use this excuse to learn Fengjian. Isn't it beautiful? Okay, the old man explores the way first. Chao Beichao jumped and landed on the side of the dark wood, holding Buddha Chen in his right hand, and forcefully opening the dark wood with his left hand. Woo! The moment the dark wooden board was opened, a whirring wind came out of the black hole in Sifangko. Chao Beichao protected his body with Yuan Li, then turned his head and said, "Come down, it's dark underneath, and you need yours. Quirk, light it up." Chi Feng landed next to Chao Beichao and looked into the dark hole. After extending his right hand, a thunderball about the size of a softball appeared. It continued to condense and then became brighter and brighter. Chi Feng controlled the thunderball into the hole, and the hole instantly brightened up, and the stairs appeared, but because the distance of the hole was relatively long, it was impossible to see the far place. Good job, I will lead the way, you follow behind me, don't get lost, or I won't be able to save you. Xiao Beichao exhorted. The impression of this veteran in Chi Feng's mind is the kind of shameless person who likes to be cheap and leaning on the old and selling the old. Now that he can say these things, it shows that he still has a conscience. After Xiao Beichao went down, Chi Feng immediately followed behind him. The cave was a little dark. The more you walk down, the more humid the ground, and the air began to become thinner. The thin air has no effect on Xiao Beichao. Even if the air in it is only 1/10 of that of the outside world, it will not be difficult for Xiao Beichao during the base period. The monk will not die even if he does not breathe for an hour. Are you okay? Xiao Beichao asked Chi Feng behind him as he walked. The hole was very deep. By this time the air had begun to become thinner and extremely humid. I'm okay, let's go on. At this level, Chi Feng doesn't affect Chi Feng at all. Not to mention that he is now at the 5th level of Qi training. Just air manipulation can make him survive in an airless environment. It's too pediatric. Chapter 192 Battle against the heroic spirits. When Xiao Beichao and Chi Feng went deep into the ground, they felt a kind of yin qi rushing towards their faces. Although it was not very strong, it was enough to make ordinary people feel uncomfortable. After a few minutes, I finally came to the flat ground. There was a stone gate 5 meters in front, and at this moment the ground was already wet. The moment Xiao Beichao pushed Shimen open, a gloomy wind blew in, but it was blocked by the Yuanli shield around him. Chi Feng took a few steps forward. The space in the Shimen is very large, but most of the space is occupied by a pool. The water in the pool is pitch black as ink, and there is also a stone gate at the front end that is closed. Go directly to the next Shimen. Xiao Beichao jumped forward and landed on the dark water, only staying for 2 seconds before rushing to Shimen. Chi Feng also landed on the water. When the divine consciousness swept into the water, Chi Feng was shocked. There are hundreds of long sword under the dark water, and each one is different. No matter what, Chi Feng feels that the long sword below are very extraordinary, and there are definitely good sword among them. But it seems that Xiao Beichao didn't discover the secret underwater, or Xiao Beichao didn't speak on purpose, just didn't want him to know. Forget it. Chi Feng's figure suddenly fell in front of the stone gate at the front of the pool. Just at this time Xiao Beichao opened the stone gate. Shoo! Dozens of arrows hit Xiao Beichao and Chi Feng, and the Buddha Chen in Xiao Beichao's hand knocked all the arrows to the ground. Chi Feng's consciousness swept the arrow on the ground and found that there was dried venom on the arrow, which means that the arrow was poisonous long ago, but now the venom has dried out. Look ahead. Xiao Beichao's tone trembled. Chi Feng looked inside the door, suddenly dumbfounded. The rows of shelves at the end of the door were actually filled with gold, and there were also some very unusual objects carved out of gold. At the front of these things, there is a jade chair. On the jade chair, a set of golden armor is placed on it quietly. When Xiao Beichao wanted to go in and search, the golden armor on the jade chair was suspended, and then Chi Feng, seeing a green soul body, appeared in the armor. He wore the golden armor on his body. Heroic. Xiao Beichao did not continue forward, but took a step back. Because this room does not have a total range of 15 meters, Chi Feng's spiritual sense instantly swept over what Xiao Beichao called the hero, and then discovered that although this guy is a soul body, the energy in it is very large. This energy intensity is at least the level of the first emperor, so Xiao Beichao was cautious. You step back, this guy's strength is so strong that you can't intervene. Xiao Beichao looked at Chi Feng and said solemnly. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chi Feng nodded and stepped back a bit, and came to the edge of the black pool. Those who trespass to the tomb of the Sword Emperor, die. A word came from the heroic spirit wearing the golden armor, and then the right hand made a void move, which seemed to be pulling something. The next moment Chi Feng felt the black pool behind him start to boil, and the hundreds of long sword began to tremble, as if they were about to rush out of the pool. One of the hundreds of long sword trembles the most. After remembering the position of this sword, Chi Feng manipulated the air over the water to form air pressure, and then all the air in the water solidified, causing those long sword can't tremble anymore. After waiting for more than 10 seconds without seeing the sword, the heroic spirit was a little puzzled, but because the wisdom of the heroic spirit was almost completely dissipated, which made his brain not very good, so he didn't react to what was going on for a while. Xiao Beichao looked at this heroic spirit with some confusion. This guy held a hand and didn't see any movement for dozens of seconds. Could something be wrong? No matter what, Xiao Beichao will be preemptive. He doesn't want to waste so many treasures here. When this hero reacts, he may not be able to fight. Foken brought a white pike and rushed towards the heroic spirit. The heroic spirit also noticed that there was a problem at this moment. The sword and the black god's water were manipulated by the kid on the side of the pool, so he couldn't control the weapon. It didn't have time to think about it right now, because villain's attack had already come, and the heroic spirit waved his right hand, and a golden sword leaning on the edge of the jade chair fell into his hand, and then it slashed. The golden wave of sword came to the front of the white pike in an instant. The two collided and set off an aftermath of energy. Fortunately, the room was not very narrow, and nothing on the shelf was affected. Xiao Beichao stepped back a few steps. The strength of this heroic spirit is very strong. He is actually at a disadvantage. Is it true that the foundation he built is fake? How can even a heroic spirit be unable to deal with it? The heroic spirit had already sensed the strength of Chao Beichao, and at this moment he rushed up directly. The two who broke into the tomb of the Tomb Sword Emperor must die here today. Chi Feng became a little worried when he saw Chao Beichao fall into the downwind. Chao Beichao couldn't beat the heroic spirit. He naturally couldn't beat the hero. Isn't this old way of building a foundation? Why is the strength so weak during the foundation building period? But suddenly Chao Beichao roared, "For so many years, you can beat me like this by this ghost." The old man is angry. Originally, Chi Feng wanted to come forward and give Chao Beichao a mouthful. Quirk does not add supplements. After all, if Chao Beichao died, he would not survive. A few minutes later, Chao Beichao spit out a mouthful of blood and slammed into the wall. His breath was a little wilted, and the heroic spirit was better than Chao Beichao, but the golden armor had several parts missing and all fell to the ground. As a result, the heroic spirit stopped speaking and continued to chop the enchantment. Golden, wood, water, fire and earth, 8 trigrams are in the hands of the universe. Chao Beichao muttered the formula, and the barrier seemed to become stronger. The heroic spirit launched an attack instantly, and the golden sword smashed on the barrier, but it did not break through the barrier. "You don't need to come over, let the old man take care of him." Chao Beichao wiped the bloodline at the corner of his mouth before he walked to the heroic spirit and asked, "Who is the Grave Sword Emperor you're talking about?" But Ying Ling didn't give him time to consider. The golden sword had already slashed over. Chao Beichao picked up the Buddha Chen to move forward, and with a bang, dozens of dust threads on the Buddha Chen fell. Chao Beichao took out the 8 trigrams plate from his arms and threw it above the heroic spirit's head. The 8 trigrams plate suddenly turned and shot a ray of light from the edge of the 8 trigrams. It seemed that an enchantment had trapped the heroic spirit. The heroic spirit is still hacking the enchantment of the 8 trigrams plate. At this time, Chao Beichao asked it such a question, and he immediately snorted, "I am the guardian of the tomb of the Grave Sword Emperor. If the Grave Sword Emperor is alive, you two little bugs, the Grave Sword Emperor can kill you instantly." Chi Feng can only watch from the sidelines. The speed of these two guys is too fast. If he rashly attacks with thunder and lightning, he may injure Chao Beichao, so he can only watch at the moment. Chao Beichao was also a little frightened, and if he continued like this, he would show his whole cards. Kakaka's voice sounded, and Chao Beichao knew that he couldn't wait any longer. His 8 trigrams plate could trap the heroic spirit for a while, but it couldn't be too long. "Since you don't want to say it, then go to accompany your Grave Sword Emperor," Chao Beichao said helplessly, and a fireball condensed with his right hand and threw it directly into the enchantment, hitting the heroic spirit. "Boy, come and attack him with thunder." This heroic spirit is most afraid of thunder and fire. As soon as Chao Beichao said this, he remembered, isn't he good at fireball? "My dust silk." Chao Beichao cried out heartily, and at the same time, Foken brought a piece of white light to the heroic spirit, and the two suddenly fought hard. "Don't talk to the old man about these things, I'll ask you who the Grave Sword Emperor is," Chao Beichao shouted. Chapter 193. 3 Regardless of the black market. Hi. The heroic howling in pain. The sword in his hand also fell to the ground, and his soul began to light and darken, as if it would dissipate at any time. Seeing that his strength was not enough, Chao Beichao added a fireball again, and a more painful howling came. Chi Feng couldn't bear it. A minute later, the heroic spirits in the 8 trigrams enchantment had dissipated, and the golden armor was lying quietly on the ground. The raging flames before could not damage it at all. It was a good thing at first glance. "Boy, this time I risked my life to fight, so 6 or 4 points are unreasonable, 3 or 7 points. I'll be 7 and 3. Chao Beichao took the 8 trigrams back and said weakly. Fortunately, he didn't come alone before. Although Chi Feng and him came and didn't come, but if he didn't teach him fireball, he would not be able to deal with this hero. This heroic conventional attack method is useless to it. Even if 8 trigrams traps it for a long time, Chao Beichao will not be able to kill it. In the end, Chao Beichao's strength is exhausted and it will be his own death. I have no opinion. 3 to 7 points are equal to 3 to 7 points. Chi Feng came to Chao Beichao and wanted to use Quirk supplements to help him. As a result, the old man was very greedy for money, so he didn't waste Quirk supplements, agent. But if there is no Chao Beichao in this trip, to be honest, it would be really dangerous. The Grave Sword Emperor said in the mouth of the dead hero, because he should be the owner of this tomb, and this hero is just a guardian, so his strength stronger, then you can imagine that the strength of the Grave Sword Emperor before his death is definitely to kill them in seconds. Chao Beichao was taken aback. According to Chi Feng's previous character, he should be very opposed to it. Then he could use the 64-point excuse to let Chi Feng teach him Fengzhen. In the end, this kid actually compromised, which is too strange. The gold treasures in this house are sold at sky-high prices. What you said is true, Chao Beichao asked again, as this kid's brain frightened. Really, it's true, you pick something quickly, and I will take the rest, Chi Feng urged. Although the items on these shelves are good, they are not in the eyes of Chi Feng. What he lacks most now is money. Although these items may bring him hundreds of millions of dollars, they are not as valuable as the sword in the pool. Since the heroic spirit cared about the sword in the black pond so much, it showed its preciousness, and there might be weapons from the grave sword emperor's life in the pond. As for whether Chao Beichao found the sword in the pond, Chi Feng still doesn't know. In short, he must take the sword from the pond, but not now. Well, the old man is not welcome. Chao Beichao took out 2 burlap bags from his arms, and threw one to Chi Feng. You will take it when I finish my selection. It's no wonder that Chao Beichao looks bulging. He was carrying a burlap bag. This guy is really ready. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. 10 minutes later, Chao Beichao picked and took most of the objects. The gold bricks and some seemingly precious objects were taken away, and the rest of Chi Feng was taken away. Heroic's armor is a good thing. Give you the helmet. I will take the rest of the body parts. Chao Beichao immediately bent over and began to pick it up. Chi Feng has no objection. The helmet is the helmet. How handsome. The first thing people see is your face. Don't wear this golden helmet too much. Chi Feng put the helmet directly on his head, and Chao Beichao immediately smiled when he saw it. It's not bad, very decent, haha. Let's go, there is nothing left to take here. Chi Feng waved his hand and said. Wait. Chao Beichao stopped Chi Feng, then banged in the room to see if there were any hidden passages. He always felt that there was something hidden here, but he just didn't know where it was. After half an hour, Chao Beichao gave up looking for the underpass, cleaned up, and Chi Feng left directly. Where to go next? Chi Feng looked at Chao Beichao, who was carrying a big sack, and asked. So many valuables, isn't it appropriate for us to carry this way? Does this still have to be said by you? Chao Beichao smiled. There is a black market in Kanagawa that is the largest in Kanagawa. The transaction volume there starts with hundreds of millions of dollars, and the lowest is also 10 million. Basically, some people like to go there. Transaction, we will pass now. Are you going to sell all these things? Chi Feng looked at Chao Beichao in astonishment. Although this sack of things was almost useless, it didn't feel good to sell them all. Of course not. No matter how big the black market is, it is impossible to buy so many things from both of us at once. We only need to take a few shots. Chao Beichao shook the sacks and leapt forward. Chi Feng followed behind. Although he took some of his valuables, he didn't plan to sell as much. Half of the shot was at most. The rest can be kept by himself or given to Inoue Ying and his classmates. Because there are many female pendants and some rings and earrings in his sack, Chi Feng doesn't understand why such a better person like Tomb Sword Emperor would use some female objects to bury him. Chi Feng has a guess that when the Grave Sword Emperor died, his beloved woman buried him, and then put some personal items she likes in, as if he were to accompany him in the tomb. Only this kind of guess is reasonable. When the two of them got on the highway, there was no car. Chao Beichao had no choice but to rush outside, and finally saw a few cars after an hour. Chao Beichao stopped a driver and said, "Give you 3 times the price, go this place." The driver looked at the address on Chao Beichao's phone and looked at Chi Feng again. He saw that the two of them were carrying a large sack of sacks behind their backs. They rolled their eyes and said, 5 times the price. Your kid is afraid that you are crazy about money. From here to the address I gave you, 3 times the price is more than enough. You actually need 5 times? Chao Beichao stared at the driver. If you don't give it, don't let me go, the driver said. He was about to start the car. Go. Let's go. Chi Feng immediately opened the trunk and put the sack in it. Chao Beichao wanted to scold Chi Feng at first, but even thinking about the game this time, he had no choice but to get in the car. I couldn't put the sack in the trunk, so I put it on the back seat next to Chi Feng. When the two arrived at the destination, it was already dusk. Chi Feng thought it was a more prosperous part of the city, but only when he came here did he realize that he was wrong. It's called prosperous here and there. Here is in the suburbs, and there are a lot of people here, all kinds of people, people who wear all kinds of clothes. A huge black castle-like tower looks like an ancient book pavilion, and there are some small black market vendors around it, and there are many people with colorful hair around the table drinking, and there are groups of 3 or 5 people, a lot. When Chi Feng and Chao Beichao got off the car, they immediately attracted the attention of hundreds of people. Most of these people's eyes were on the golden helmet worn on Chi Feng's head, as well as Chao Beichao and the burlap bag behind him. Are you sure it's this kind of place? Chi Feng frowned. He didn't like the people here very much, and all of them looked greedy. Yes, it's here. Chao Beichao came here for the second time. He glanced around the people around him, and then he said, this is the Kanagawa-Sano area. So many people gathered here. When I came here, there weren't so many people gathered here, and it will be like this in the next few years. There are at least 1,000 people outside in this black market, and it is unknown how many people are inside that large tower. Brother, I think your helmet is not bad. How do you sell it to me at 5 million? A yellow-haired man walked towards Chi Feng in a dauntless manner, with a serrated sword pinned to his waist. 5 million wants my helmet? Chi Feng smiled. I think you are dreaming, right? Chi Feng doesn't believe that even if someone does something, there will be no one to care about it. Otherwise, there will not be so many people gathered here. If they are all clueless people, perhaps this place has long since existed. Chapter 194. What are you? Sure enough, when he heard Chi Feng talking like this, the yellow-haired man pulled out the serrated sword on his waist, alternating the sword back and forth between his hands, staring at Chi Feng viciously and said, "Little devil head, I think you are toasting. If you don't eat fine wine, do you know what 5 million means to a kid like you?" Chi Feng glanced around the people around him, and found that these guys were all watching the show, and some of them were eager to try and seemed to want to get in. Chi Feng turned to look at Xiao Beiqiao. Xiao Beiqiao didn't speak, but just nodded as if tacitly approving of something. "Little devil, do you dare to ignore me?" The yellow-haired man said that the sword in his hand is about to be placed on Chi Feng's neck. "A little devil, an old man, dare to come here so arrogantly, simply giving them money, of." Chi Feng's eyes widened, and 2 lightning arcs shot at the yellow-haired man from his eyes, one on his chest and the other on his wrist with a sword. Ah! The yellow-haired man didn't expect Chi Feng to hit someone directly, and the quirk was actually a thunder and lightning shot out of his eyes. After being hit by a sudden attack, the yellow-haired man screamed and fell to the ground twitching. Don't look at Chi Feng shooting 2 lightning arcs from his eyes, but the power of them is very powerful. It's enough to deal with this kind of thing. "You dare to do it?" After the yellow-haired man fell to the ground, a group of people behind him rushed over. There were more than a dozen people. They looked at Chi Feng and Xiao Beiqiao aggressively, but didn't dare to do it for a while. After all, in the eyes of this kid, releasing the quirk can knock down their teammates, which shows that they are not ordinary people. Of course, most people don't come to this kind of place. Most people who come here have 2 brushes, or they just come with the right person. "Are you going to stand up for him?" Chi Feng took a step forward, and his momentum instantly crushed a dozen people on the opposite side. What kind of joke is he really treating him as a kid? Xiao Beiqiao saw Chi Feng's aura and knew that Chi Feng is not simple. It is not just the aura of the 4th level of Qi training, but the aura of a superior person, like being in a high position, looking down at the people below. Like him, he is the 3rd emperor, so long standing at a high position naturally has the aura of a superior, but he has been leisurely all year round, and to be honest, his aura may not be as strong as Chi Feng. Of course, Xiao Beiqiao can see that Chi Feng is now on the 5th level of Qi training. Is this really a kid? Some of the dozen people took 2 steps back, obviously frightened by Chi Feng's aura. "A kid, an old man, none of you should go back." The man with a string of gold chains around his neck took a step forward, and the rest of the people were relieved and didn't back again. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. The one with the gold chain around this neck is their captain. He is a bit of a small name in the middle and outer periphery of the black market that doesn't care. Their team also has number 40 or 50 people. It's easy to deal with this kind of 2 people coming together. Only at first was frightened by Chi Feng's momentum. Just as the 2 sides drew their swords and crossbows, there was a gust of wind in the sky, and then Chi Feng saw the man with a pair of black wings flying down from the sky and falling in between them. "Deacon Kuroba is good." The man with the golden chain immediately leaned forward with a smiling face, and said very politely and evilly. The others also showed their kindness to the visitors. Only Chi Feng and Xiao Beiqiao didn't say a word. They didn't know this guy with black wings, and there was something to say hello here. "What the hell is going on?" Deacon Black Feather nodded, and then looked at Chi Feng and Xiao Beiqiao. Here, these 2 guys turned a blind eye to his arrival and would not even say hello. The people watching the theater all around shook their heads. The power of a deacon in this kind of place is very big. Even here it is common to kill people, but this old and young is actually indifferent. It seems that they don't care about it at all. Before Chi Feng could speak, the golden chain man standing next to Deacon Kuroba immediately said, "Deacon Kuroba, these 2 guys hurt my brother with their hands. They're very arrogant." Deacon Kuroba was shocked when he saw that Chi Feng dared to do it directly. He immediately spread his wings and swept forward, and a strong wind rushed towards Chi Feng and Xiao Beiqiao. "You are here to confiscate the stuff and go with me. When the matter is resolved, the stuff will be returned to you." Deacon He Yu had already noticed the sack behind Chi Feng and Xiao Beiqiao. To say that there is no good thing, he doesn't believe it. At this moment, he beckoned the 2 black men behind him to step forward and take away the sack of Chi Feng and Xiao Beiqiao. "Shut up," Deacon Black Feather sneered, and looked at Chi Feng and Xiao Beiqiao. "You 2 will go with me. That said, you admit that you are a dog's eye, and those people behind you are also a dog's eye?" Chi Feng laughed. The golden chain man and a group of his men immediately turned their heads and left. These 2 guys were simply looking for death and dared to do something with Deacon Kuroba. Deacon Kuroba nodded, looking fiercely at Chi Feng and Xiao Beiqiao and asked, "Is that right?" "Why? We're here to do big business. What's the problem?" Chi Feng said unceremoniously. "If you switch to Black Kobe or Shenquan, you must know everyone present. This Black Feather Deacon has just entered the ranks of the 7 Saints at best, and his strength is average. If Chi Feng is allowed to do something, he can directly kill him, but Chi Feng will not just do it like this. What are you, dare to take Lousy's things?" Chi Feng was directly angry, and knocked out 2 lightning bolts with one hand, knocking the 2 men in black directly to the ground. The rest of the people outside the black market were also speechless, and even more people were surprised. No one dared to make trouble here for a long time. Today, 2 great men came and directly started with the Deacon Black Feather, who was responsible for managing public security outside the black market. As long as these 2 do their hands, it will be an endless situation. The black market here is the most chaotic and the most traded black market in Kanagawa. A few people die every day, and a little devil dares to be so arrogant. It's Chao Beichao. No one knows such a three emperor standing here. It can be seen that Chao Beichao's reputation is relatively low, and his popularity is also very low. I saw it with my own eyes. You still want to deny it? Everyone here has seen it. The Golden Chain Man said immediately, and then beckoned to the people behind him, who immediately agreed. Chi Feng didn't pay attention to Deacon Kuroba, but looked at the Golden Chain Man and said, "Which one of your dogs saw the trouble I caused first, the one I hit first?" Deacon Kuroba's face turned gloomy, and he dared to talk to him like this at this time. It was just two newcomers. He had never seen these two guys before. The first time he came to the black market, he dared to beat people and was rude to him. This kind of person is cheap even if they die. You. The Golden Chain Man stared at Chi Feng angrily. At this time, this guy is still looking for death. Is the ignorant really fearless? Chapter 195 Deacon Kuroba's strong wind hit. Chi Feng stepped forward and waved a dozen wind blades with one hand, directly breaking the strong wind and slashing toward Deacon Kuroba. Deacon Kuroba flew up in shock and escaped the wind blade. What is the origin of this little devil? His strength is so strong, and besides thunder and lightning, it seems that there are other Quirk methods. Want to go? Chi Feng pointed his right hand into the air. There was a thunder in the sky, and a pillar of thunder fell from the sky. Deacon Kuroba's frightened soul flew away and wrapped himself with his wings. At this moment, the pillar of thunder had already hit his wings, on. Boom! With a muffled sound, Deacon Kuroba was smashed into the ground, and a small pit appeared on the ground. At this moment, Deacon Kuroba was covered with blood on his wings, where there was a little demeanor before. Everyone was shocked, but Deacon Kuroba was injured and his injuries looked serious. Most of the people present knew the strength of Deacon Kuroba. In short, few people who were out of the black market were opponents of Deacon Kuroba, so everyone gave the Deacon Kuroba face, and also the face of the black market. But now there are two great people here. No, it should be said that they are ruthless people. These two guys, among them the young man wearing the golden helmet, actually used their own power to severely wound Deacon Black Feather in such a fast situation. This strength is simply terrifying. Those who wanted to trouble Chi Feng also gave up their thoughts. These two guys beat Deacon Kuroba like this, and today they are afraid it will be difficult to leave here alive. Who dares to do it in the ancient god's black market? A furious voice came, and then a red-haired man rushed out of the black market and suddenly came to Deacon Kuroba. Seeing the blood dripping on Deacon Kuroba's wings, the red-haired man's eyes fell cold, and he looked up and swept around. Who did this? When the red-haired man finished saying this, two people rushed out from the black market, and they looked stronger than the previous Deacon Kuroba. After the two came over, they only looked at the badly injured Deacon Kuroba, but they didn't speak. They were waiting for the red-haired man. Yes, it was the hands of those two people. The Golden Chain Man pointed his finger with a bit of war. Chi Feng and Chao Beichao said. The red-haired man stood up and ordered two people to carry Deacon Heiyu down. Only then did he look at Chi Feng and Chao Beichao coldly. But what surprised him was that these two men didn't seem to have any fighting capacity. One was an old man in his 50s, and another kid who was not even 18 years old. How could the two of them give Deacon Kuroba to Deacon Kuroba? Injured. However, you can look at the surface. It must be the old man's hand. The red-haired man looked at Chao Beichao and asked, "You hurt Deacon Kuroba? Why did you do it?" Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chao Beichao is getting a little irritable. What is going on in this black market? He hasn't had so many troubles in the past few years. Why has it happened this year? Chi Feng didn't wait for Chao Beichao to speak and said, "I hurt that guy. Is there any problem?" "You hurt?" The red-haired man was taken aback. Deacon Kuroba was hurt by this kid? Then he sneered, "It's really scary to be born later. I want to see what you can do." The red-haired man was about to do it after he finished talking. When Chi Feng was about to do it, the Buddha Chen in Chao Beichao's hand suddenly waved, and the three red-haired men instantly knocked them into the air. How is this possible? The red-haired man and the two who were knocked into the air had this idea in their hearts. Who the hell was this old man? Knocked them into the air with an understatement. You people are really annoying. The old man came here to make money and trade, not playing with you here, so quickly take me to see your boss. Chao Beichao said impatiently. Tei is in charge. What should I do now? In charge of Tei is a red-haired man. At this moment, he also knows that he should not be the opponent of the old man. If that is the case, let them enter the black market first. In short, if they start beating people in the black market of their ancient gods, they must give an explanation. Okay, I'll take you in. Manager Tei stood up and reached out and made a please gesture. Chao Beichao and Chi Feng walked directly into the black market as if they were okay. The series of things that happened in this short period of time made everyone present feel very amazing, but as long as the two people entered the ancient god black market, it would be difficult to get out. Chi Feng and Chao Beichao came to a private room under the leadership of a red-haired man. There are a lot of people in this black market, and Chi Feng observed that some people are quite good. The two of you were waiting here, Tei manager said blankly, turning and leaving. There is a camera in the room, but Chao Beichao has no scruples, and said to himself, There are more and more rules in this broken place, and it may be the case that the business grows. Chi Feng just smiled and did not speak. About 5 minutes later, a Mediterranean man walked in and sat on his seat before looking at Chi Feng and Xiao Beichao and asked, "What are the two coming to the ancient god's black market?" "Sell something. You see how much it is worth." Xiao Beichao put the burlap bag forward and said lightly. The Mediterranean man glanced at the burlap bag and immediately called out. A few minutes later, a young man with glasses came in, looking stern. "Ji Yuhua, look at how much the stuff in this burlap bag is worth," the Mediterranean man said politely. The man named Ji Yuhua nodded and walked to the burlap bag. Originally, he didn't think much of Chi Feng and Xiao Beichao's outfits, but the helmet on Chi Feng's head, he could tell at a glance that it was a top-notch item. So at this moment, he directly opened the sackcloth bag. When all the eyes were golden, Ji Yuhua was shocked. How did these two people get these things? As the artifacts were observed and touched by Ji Yuhua's expression became more and more shocked. Each of these artifacts was of different value, and they were all sky-high prices. Half an hour later, when the Mediterranean man was a little impatient, Ji Yuhua stood up. The Mediterranean man asked plainly, "How about Guha and how much are these things worth?" Ji Yuhua was silent for a moment, and then he said, "Billions is the lowest estimate. According to my opinion, this linen bag should be worth 10 billion. If it's 10 billion China coins, it's really a lot, but the money in island countries is relatively large, but the tens of billions are astronomical." "What are you talking about?" The Mediterranean man almost spit out the tea he had drunk. "They have never said anyone here who brought such a valuable item directly, and Ji Yuhua said that the value is tens of billions. That is the real value. 10 billion. Ji Yuhua is the grandson of the president of the ancient god black market, and he is very proficient in this aspect, so he believes what Ji Yuhua said. Yes, these things are indeed very valuable. Even if we can't spend so much money on the ancient god black market for a while. Ji Yuhua shook his head. Chapter 196. Xiao Beichao is angry. However, the Mediterranean man showed a greedy look in his eyes. Didn't Tei say that before? The two guys made trouble outside the black market and injured Deacon Kuroba. It seems that they can get 1 or 2 free utensils today. Who said I'm going to shoot all of them? I just shot a little bit. According to your estimate, take half of these artifacts and transfer the money to me. Xiao Beichao said. Ji Yuhua shook his head and said, "Old sir, even if you take out half of the utensils, our ancient god black market can't spend so much money. We can only charge you 10 utensils, and we can't do anything more." Chi Feng couldn't sit still after hearing this. "I also have something to sell. You can't afford to pay for the biggest black market in Kanagawa, so where can we go?" Ji Yuhua also saw the linen bag next to Chi Feng. After he came over, he took a look. It was almost the same as that of the old man. However, this kid's stuff was not as good as that of the old man, but it was also very valuable. "Don't worry, our ancient god black market absolutely pleases the two of you." The Mediterranean man smiled and made a phone call and started arranging the transaction. Although Ji Yuhua wanted to say something, he still had to think about it in the end. Then the Mediterranean man took Xiao Beichao and Chi Feng to the trading place. Xiao Beichao took out 13 artifacts and Chi Feng took out 8. After appraisal, people from the ancient god's black market took out Chi Feng and Xiao Beichao. The utensils are taken away. "This is the price you paid. The money has been put into the card, you can check it," the Mediterranean man said with a smile. Xiao Beichao immediately began to check the account. When he found that the money in the account was only 1 billion, he couldn't sit still, and immediately said, "How is it 1 billion? Chi Feng also checked, and it turned out to be only 500 million, which is similar to Xiao Beichao's situation. Obviously, the ancient god's black market had done tricks and swallowed a few more things from them. This is normal. You two made a big fight outside my ancient god black market and wounded our Deacon Kuroba, so those artifacts were considered fines." The Mediterranean man smiled and suddenly clapped his hands. A dozen guys with strong aura came in from the door. Chi Feng could see the strength of these people at a glance. 3 of them were the strength of the first 3 sages, the other was not good with the strengths of the first sage, and the rest were also there. The strength of the 7 saints. "Dare to play tricks in front of the old man, you are really amazing." Xiao Beichao stood up. Even if he did not build the foundation before, he was not afraid of the black market of the ancient gods. Now he has built the foundation. The strength can be called the first emperor. Who is not good for the black market of ancient gods, but wants to provoke him? Chi Feng knew that there was a good show. He didn't mean to make a move. Among these people, there was a first sage and 3 first 3 sages. Even if he did it, it would take a lot of effort to let Xiao Beichao make a move. All right. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. The guy like Xiao Beichao who regards money as his life was carved out of the same model as Pingyuan Shangda. The ancient god black market dared to attack Xiao Beichao in this regard. It is considered to find the wrong person. "Why, are you dissatisfied?" The Mediterranean man turned his face to deny after taking the things. "As long as you dare to do it, I can guarantee that I will let you vomit out the money you took." "That's right, they are bullying others. As long as this old thing dares to do it, not only will everything be theirs, but the money will also have to be vomited, and at most tens of thousands of dollars will be kindly given to you to see if you are sick." Xiao Beichao laughed angrily. "It's so good, the ancient god black mayor is capable." Old things, take things quickly and roll away. We don't want to bully the old, weak, sick and disabled. One of the men smiled and said, and the others also laughed. With so many people here, even if you are strong, you will still get on the ground. Moreover, in the ancient gods' black market, they are not considered top combat power. The real top combat power is stronger than a dozen of them. Xiao Bichao's face has turned black, and he said to Chi Feng without turning his head, "You step aside." Chi Feng knew that Xiao Beichao was about to make a move, and immediately stood up and moved away from Xiao Beichao. Hundreds of people gathered in the hall. At this moment, these dozens of people flew down from upstairs, and all of them were seriously injured. How could they not know that something went wrong in the ancient gods' black market? It seemed that they had encountered hardship. The walls of the room were all shattered, and a dozen people flew directly from upstairs like kites with broken wires, and landed in the hall, smashing some tables. No more nonsense, the old man has plucked out all the hairs on your head. Xiao Beichao still feels angry. Now he is like a good fight. He has cultivated to the foundation building stage with great pains, and he was actually bullied in such a place. How can this be tolerated? And each of the dozen or so people vomited a mouthful of blood. All of them were seriously injured, and the weaker ones were already in a coma. The moment Xiao Beichao took the shot, the dozens of people also launched the quirk. Just a few people to deal with an old man, to tell the truth, just do it with so many people. It's just that they ended up successfully every time, and today they were hid directly from the room, and even the walls were drunk. The noise in the black market disappeared for a while, and everyone stood up, staring into the blasted wall upstairs. Boom. Among the dozen or so people, some of the old fried dough sticks who were present all knew them. These people were the upper middle class of the ancient god black market, and they were very powerful, and they were specially used to deal with some fat sheep. Xiao Beichao was already too lazy to talk nonsense, and the Buddha Chen in his hand rolled up and swept directly at the dozen people. Unexpectedly, this time I actually kicked the iron plate. The strength of this old man is really terrifying. With this blow, he sent a dozen of his powerful men into the air, and no one has been there until now. To come back again, that is to say, the blow of the old man just now severely wounded more than a dozen of his men, and he could no longer fight at this moment. Gee. What do you mean by your excellency? The Mediterranean man forcibly said calmly. Our people didn't do anything to you, what do you mean? This old man has at least 3 emperors in strength, and thinking that he has offended a 3rd emperor, the Mediterranean man's heart is refreshing. The Mediterranean man's legs were shaking at the moment, there were only 2 words in his mind, it was over. You must know that 4 of them are in the ranking of underground heroes, and they can be counted as the top 3 of the 7 saints, and there is another strength that can be compared with the first saint, but because of this, Xiao Beichao is terrible. Why, you really don't want to kill this bone? The Mediterranean man sneered. Although Tei Guan said that this old man is very strong, it is at most the strength of the first 3 sages. Among the dozen of them, the strength is stronger than this old man. There are so many, how can I be afraid? But the next moment all of them were shocked. Their quirk hadn't been fully released yet, or that they were directly broken up by this white princess as soon as they were released, and then they really looked at this white princess. Knocked them into the air. Chapter 197. Hearing Xiao Beichao said that he would pull out his hair, the Mediterranean man no longer dared to speak, but was sending text messages with his mobile phone in his hand. Chi Feng naturally noticed the actions of the Mediterranean man, but he didn't care about it. Xiao Beichao was able to show his strength this time. He beat more than a dozen people into serious injuries with one move. Chi Feng is ashamed of this strength. Not as good. Xiao Beichao sat down again, speaking as slow as possible. Are you going to give me my money? Yes, absolutely, but you can wait a while, I'll send someone to withdraw the money. The Mediterranean man wiped the sweat from his forehead and said. Today is really hard to do for good. Whether it is their ancient god black market wrong first, the old and the young don't even want to leave here unharmed. This place is the leader of the Kanagawa black market. How can you just concede defeat like this? The old man will wait for you for a while. Xiao Beichao actually took out his mobile phone and started playing the game. Chi Feng walked out of the broken wall and looked down. This is the 3rd floor, and below is the hall, which he walked up from before. At this moment, everyone in the hall was looking at the 3rd floor. When Chi Feng walked out, they all saw it. Could it be that he couldn't do this young man with a golden helmet? Hundreds of people looked at Chi Feng, and Chi Feng felt a little uncomfortable. The dozens of people below didn't fight me, they all looked at me. A few minutes later, Chi Feng felt a sense of depression. This feeling is like you are a wolf and the other person is a tiger. At this time, the tiger releases a sense of depression. Turning his head, Chi Feng saw a thin man who was as thin as a bamboo pole. This man was pale and carried a very thin long sword behind his back. Fast speed. Chi Feng was shocked. The man must have jumped up from the hall, and he was distracted just now but didn't realize when this guy came. Xiao Beichao naturally noticed the people coming, but he didn't stand up. The Mediterranean man breathed a sigh of relief. When he saw the man with a bamboo pole, he immediately ran over and said flatly, Sego, you are here. I'm very busy. Tell me what's going on. The bamboo pole man named Shagu said in a flat tone. He obviously noticed Xiao Beichao sitting on the sofa. This guy looked unremarkable, but in fact the strength is very strong. Maybe it has something to do with this guy. Chi Feng stood still and didn't move. This guy named Shagu gave him a dangerous feeling. The Mediterranean man immediately told Shagu about the cause and effect. Of course, he didn't mention anything about Kang Chao Beichao and Chi Feng. After Sagea heard it, he just nodded, and what Hirano Yuri, the Mediterranean, said, was dubious. It was definitely the ancient god black market being rude to these two people, and that's why this happened. However, as a person in the ancient god black market, he would not ask these reasons, because he could only help the ancient god black market to get ahead, but he had to weigh the opponent's strength. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Who is your excellency? Shagu asked, turning his head to look at Chao Beichao. Chao Beichao fiddled with Buddha Chen before he said, I have been in Chao Beichao for so many years, but a black market in Kanagawa doesn't know who I am, and I want to cheat the old man's money. Could it be that you are also here to teach the old man? Chao Beichao. Shea frowned. He finally knew who this old Wei was, the third emperor in Shibuya. The dragon never sees the head, and some people have rumored that Chao Beichao is dead, but now it seems to be alive. Good. It turned out to be the third emperor of Shibuya. It seems that I am blinded. Shea smiled, but his expression did not fluctuate. What? The third emperor of Shibuya? Hirano touched his forehead and felt a little dizzy. The ancient god black market actually offended such a big man. The power of the three emperors of Shibuya is not ordinary, and this kind of emperor knows there are so many people. It is said that Joe Kitabashi and Shibuya #1 Emperor Godquan are still hypocritical. If Shenquan takes the lead for him, then the ancient god black market can't hold it either. Since your eyes are clumsy, then honestly let them take out the money they swallowed me, and this is a matter of course. Chao Beichao said. Sagea turned his head and asked Hirano, how much do you still miss him? It's still 6 or 7 billion, Hirano said. So much? Shagu was surprised. What exactly did Chao Beichao do to come to the black market and make so much money? Give it back to him. Sagu finally said. It's not okay, even if we took out so much at once, it's hurting our bones. Hirano said with sweat on his forehead. He thought that people like Chao Beichao would be honestly cleaned up by him, so he dared to swallow the money. I knew it was such a result. How could he have the courage to swallow money? I don't care about this, you quickly deal with it, Shagu said with a move with his right hand, and a chair in the distance suddenly flew towards him, and then Shagu sat down and waited. Chi Feng noticed Chagu's hand. When the chair flew towards him, there was an extreme coldness in the air. Presumably this was the quirk of Chagu. Hirano didn't dare to talk nonsense, and immediately went to deal with the matter profusely. If this matter is not handled well, his position will not be guaranteed when the president returns. About half an hour later, Chao Beichao was playing the game and suddenly received a text message, reminding him that the money had been credited. Chi Feng also received this news at the same time. In the eyes of Chao Beichao, Chi Feng, a student who can follow him to get such great benefits, is really cheap. This kid, a high school student, has assets of more than 100 million yuan. Does anyone believe it? It's all done, Hirano said when he came to Sagea. Okay. Shagu stood up. At this time, Chao Beichao also stood up. Now that he got the money, he should leave. Emperor Chao, wait a minute. Shagu blocked the way of Chao Beichao. Why, what else? Chao Beichao squinted at this guy. Shagu said lightly. Your matter has been handled, and the matter of the ancient god's black market has not been handled yet, so you can't leave yet. Chao Beichao laughed. This guy was a little bit interesting, so he threw the linen bag in his hand to Chi Feng and said, you take it. Chi Feng chuckled after taking the linen bag, don't worry. From the beginning to the end, this guy named Shagu didn't see him directly, so Chi Feng didn't feel very good about this Shagu. It happened that this guy didn't let Chao Beichao go, so a fight would be the best. To put it bluntly, you just want to fight the old man, then I will fulfill you. Chao Beichao is ready to do it. Shea also wanted to see how strong this Shibuya third emperor was. His current strength can also enter the ranks of the three emperors, but no matter where the three emperors are basically the veteran emperor, so he went to merge. It does not mean that the three emperors can be defeated. Take this opportunity to play with Chao Beichao. If he can beat Chao Beichao, it means that he can become the third emperor of Shibuya and join the Imperial League. The Imperial League is a good place. As long as he enters, his strength will rise faster. It is better than in the black market of the ancient gods. There is no other good things except for giving you money. Chapter 198. Chao Huang, please. The ancient god black market needs an explanation, and I am also helpless. Segu said very euphemistically, but his tone was provocative. Chao Beichao snorted, and Buddha Chen directly smashed the wall of the ancient god black market, and then glided and flew out. Chi Feng carried 2 sackcloth bags and followed, and fell outside the ancient god black market. When Chao Beichao and Chi Feng broke through the outer wall of the ancient god's black market, all the people outside the ancient god's black market were shocked, and they were actually these two people. They were able to come out alive, and they broke down the walls of the ancient god's black market. So swagger, what was going on? This kind of problem circulated in everyone's minds, and for a while outside the black market was extremely quiet. Only Chao Beichao and Chi Feng stood in the center. In the next moment, a black shadow rushed out of the ancient god black market. Everyone took a breath when they saw this man. Isn't this the second Admiral Shagu in the ancient god black market? Although Shagu was a law enforcer in the ancient god black market, no one dared to underestimate him, because the strength of Shagu was comparable to that of the three emperors, and he was cold and cruel, and no one wanted to offend Shagu. Now that Shagu came out, everyone's doubts were solved. This old and young actually led Shagu out, then this matter is really serious. And it is certain that since Shagu has all come out, then one can imagine that one of the two of the old, one and the young must be very strong, otherwise some people in the ancient god black market can clean it up, and there is no need for Shagu. You go up to the side and wait for me. Chao Beichao looked at Chi Feng and said. Chi Feng walked to the side of the stall honestly. The stall owner didn't dare to speak at all, so Chi Feng directly found a stool and sat down. Let's do it, my time is precious, Chao Beichao said flatly. Okay, then let me learn about Emperor Chao's strength. After Shagu finished speaking, he pulled out the thin sword behind him, and then suddenly slashed it out after spinning around in place. An air of cold spread instantly in all directions, and with this sword of Shagu, apart from the people around who could quickly feel the cold, Chao Beichao was the first person to feel the most cold. But this bit of cold is too tender to deal with him. He is not the three emperors of the past, and even if he is not in the base construction period, he can still deal with Shagu. The Buddha Chen in his hand curled up ripples, and rushed out with the final blow, directly facing the sword of Shagu. Sha Ji Yu was trying to see the approximate strength of Chao Beichao, but he saw that his attack was directly disintegrated by the opponent, and then the opponent's attack quickly came to him. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Sha Ji Yu was shocked and wanted to leave, only to realize that he could not move anymore. He turned to find that Chao Beichao was actually pressing his shoulder with a hand behind him. How is this possible? Shagu was shocked. Chao Beichao's speed is too fast. This speed is actually faster than the attack speed. He did not find when Chao Beichao came behind him. Before I could think about it, Shagu's body released a cold air, and Chao Beichao's left hand on Shagu's shoulder began to freeze instantly, but the ice actually melted in the next moment, and Chao Beichao's attack had arrived at this moment. Shagu didn't have time to evade at all, so he could only slash it out again. After offsetting some of the aftermath, he was still hit. Chao Beichao also strayed away from Shagu at this moment. Puff. Shagu was knocked out more than 10 meters away, and vomited blood after landing. How could it be so strong? Shea was inexplicably horrified. Isn't Chao Beichao the third emperor of Shibuya? And his current strength also has the third emperor. Is it really that the gold content of Shibuya Underground Heroes is relatively large? Or that Chao Beichao's strength has risen again in recent years? Although there are still several tricks in Shagu that are useless, I also know that Chao Beichao is also useless. Judging from the attack just now, Chao Beichao's understatement attacked him with a single sword and wounded him slightly. It can be seen that Chao Beichao's real strength is terrifying. Thinking of this, Shagu stood up and hugged Chao Beichao. Junior is not Emperor Chao's opponent, please. Chao Beichao directly waved to Chi Feng and said, Boy, we are going back. Chi Feng got up from his chair and followed behind Chao Beichao. He thought that Shagu could play a few rounds with Chao Beichao, but he thought too much. Now Chao Beichao's strength is indeed strong. Although Shagu is also very strong, he can only deal with Chi Feng, but he cannot deal with Chao Beichao. After Chao Beichao and Chi Feng left, Shagu's face became gloomy. This place in the ancient god black market must be found back, otherwise the president will blame it. It seems that I can only find the number 1 first. Seigo murmured, then glanced at everyone outside the black market, and said in a cold voice, If anyone dares to tell what happened today, then what is waiting for you is death. After saying this, Shagu went directly into the ancient god black market, and everyone outside the black market fought a cold war. They gave them 100 courage and didn't dare to say it, but Shagu was the master of murder without blinking. Chao Beichao and Chi Feng packed a car and returned to the training treasures and then continued to practice. A few days later, the time for the workplace experience was almost up. Chi Feng stopped practicing, carried the sack up and said, I'll go first, and I will contact you when I have time. Chao Beichao's phone number Chi Feng has already taken note, and you can directly contact you by phone if you have any future issues. Chao Beichao didn't say anything, so he let Chi Feng leave. Chi Feng didn't go home directly after leaving the treasured land of cultivation, but chartered a car again to the tomb. There were so many good sword there that he had to take away. In short, they were all priceless treasures. It was good to get one. The golden armor left by the heroic spirit after being killed by Chao Beichao included a golden sword. The golden sword may not be as good as the sword in the black pool, but it is also very good. After a lot of setbacks, Chi Feng successfully came to the tomb. Standing next to the black pool, Chi Feng's consciousness immediately swept away, but fortunately, the hundreds of sword were there. Chao Beichao doesn't seem to know that there is a sword underwater? I still want to come and pick it up by myself after some time. Chi Feng doesn't know these, but one thing is certain, Chao Beichao doesn't know that he has spiritual knowledge. Forget it, Chi Feng is ready to take the sword first. The air manipulation instantly filled the entire black pool, and then Chi Feng began to look for sword in it. He remembered that he had noticed one of the sword, and now he must look for it carefully. 10 minutes later, Chi Feng's face was a little hard to look at. The sword he had noticed before was missing, and he couldn't find the location at all. Every sword here is different, so it's really hard to find. It's hard work. Chi Feng is not in a hurry, anyway, he won't return to school tomorrow, so I will spend time looking for it today. Chapter 199. The sun is gradually setting, and Chi Feng in the tomb is still frowning. A few hours later, he found nothing. There is no difference between these swords. It seems that they all feel the same. There is no difference between a good sword or a bad sword. Chi Feng waved his hand directly, and the hundreds of long swords in the black pool trembled suddenly. What surprised Chi Feng was that he couldn't let these swords come out of the water at all with his strength. In other words, he could only watch these swords in the pool, but couldn't get them. How could this happen? Chi Feng's face was difficult to look. He still wanted to take out a few more, but now he can't bring them out. After trying for more than 10 minutes, Chi Feng wanted to give up. These swords would only tremble, but they couldn't get out of the pool. Yes. Chi Feng's inspiration flashed, and suddenly increased his strength. The sword in the pool trembled more and more. Chi Feng analyzed the sword, trembling in the difficulty of pulling for a while, and finally locked 3 of them. Sword. At this moment, Chi Feng used all his power on these 3 swords, and only heard the sound of crushing. The 3 long swords rushed out of the black pool and landed on the ground in front of Chi Feng. It was inserted into the ground, extremely sharp. It's a success, Chi Feng exclaimed excitedly. Before, he used his strength on hundreds of swords, so it is impossible to bring the sword out of the water, but as long as the strength is controlled, a few of them can be selected in a small amount. Looking at the 3 different swords in front of him, Chi Feng felt that they were worth it. These 3 swords were the most difficult for him to shake, so they were extraordinary. The sword on the right is thin and long, with a faint blue light flashing on the blade, and you can know its extraordinary features just by feeling the sword. The sword on the left is relatively short, about the length of an adult's arm, and then broad, with a faint flash of blue light. The sword in the middle is the most inconspicuous and also the most confusing for Chi Feng. This sword is a rusty Madara sword. The length of the sword is just in line with Chi Feng's idea, but the brown-black rust is all over the surface of the sword, and it is hard to see what kind of sword it is. Chi Feng immediately took out his long sword from the spatial warehouse. This sword was made by Gong Lao, and it was hard and sharp. If you really want to know the quality of the 3 swords in front of you, you can only know if you try with a good sword. Chi Feng noticed it when he inserted his long sword into the ground. There was some resistance when entering the ground, which was not as easy as the 3 swords entering the ground so easily. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chi Feng first took the cyan-lighted sword and pulled it out. The sword was very light. Chi Feng immediately swung towards his long sword, and the 2 collided. The blue light loomed, and the long sword did not change, just a tremor. Chi Feng put down the sword in his hand and picked up the Blu-ray short sword on the other side. This sword was heavier than the previous one, and it was also slashed on the long sword. Chi Feng was stunned for a moment. He did not read it wrong. Some cracks appeared in his long sword, which means that this short sword is sharper and stronger than his long sword. Putting down the surprise in his heart, Chi Feng glanced at the rusty long sword in the middle for the last time and suddenly said, "Try you, otherwise it's too unfair." Speaking of Chi Feng, he grasped the handle of the rusty long sword and wanted to pull it out. As a result, he was shocked to find that the sword was incredibly heavy, much heavier than his own long sword. "Come out!" Chi Feng yelled, and took the sword out with all his strength. Chi Feng was a little shocked when he held the sword with both hands, but it takes all his strength to hold it. If fight with this sword, and maybe villain had already killed him before he swung him. It is too heavy. If this kind of weight is to be used for combat, then strength must be above it. Chi Feng can only afford this sword by using all the cultivation base and quirk of the 5th level of Chi training, so it is impossible to use it to fight. But even so, Chi Feng still has to test its power and muster his strength. Chi Feng slashed it down and hit his long sword. Gotcha! A crisp voice sounded. Chi Feng's eyes were about to fall out, and the long sword Gong Lao made was cut into 2 pieces without any hindrance. What kind of sword is this? Chi Feng didn't believe in evil, so he slashed again with a single sword. The same result appeared, and the long sword made by Gong Lao was chopped into 3 knots. Finally, when it got dark, Chi Feng learned the location of the broken house and rushed over. "Friend, the mess room is closed." Hearing the sound of the door being pushed open, a lazy voice sounded. Chi Feng said lightly, "Sakata Yinsong, it's so leisurely." Even if it was given to Gong Lao tens of billions, he was afraid that he would not be able to make this kind of sword. "Hey, it seems that you still know me. I thought no one knew me when I walked on the road like this." Chi Feng chuckled. Banshin Yinsong immediately opened his eyes when he heard these words. He was shocked when he saw Chi Feng dressed up, and immediately asked, "The Legend of the Night? What are you doing here with me?" The reason why I had to change into the Dark Knight Legend suit was to go to the mess room to find Sakata Ginseng. This guy had cheated him once before, and this time it happened to be in Kanagawa. How could he not ask? After doing all this, Chi Feng glanced at the black pool, and then left directly. As for the long sword made by Gong Lao, Chi Feng directly threw it into the black pool. There are really very few people who know about places like the broken house. Chi Feng asked more than a dozen people even if he didn't know, and some were scared off by his appearance. But so far, Chi Feng has not been able to control this rusty long sword, so he simply put it into the space warehouse. The remaining two sword Chi Feng put away the sword that would emit blue light on the left side, and then he put the faint blue sword on his back, and put on the Night Legend suit at the same time. You knowingly asked, some little ghosts under my hand took the task you gave, and almost couldn't return, and I found that the biochemical poison field has a certain relationship with you. Chi Feng's tone was tinged with anger. Moreover, the costume of Underworld is too easy to recognize, and it is difficult to recognize the black in the whole suit. Chi Feng walked in without thinking. Chi Feng didn't have the slightest heartache. Although this long sword was made with a lot of money, the rusty long sword in his hand is what he wants now. It is a magic weapon, a real magic weapon. The broken house is located on the outskirts of Kanagawa, close to Tianye Farm. When Chi Feng came here, a house with the words, broken house, written on it was particularly conspicuous. What are you doing here with me? We never knew each other. Sakata Yinsong said nervously. The only thing that Dark Knight Legend came here might be related to the biochemical poison field. How could Banshin Yinsong not know the Legend of the Night? The Legend of the Night was killed in the ranking contest of the Emperor League, is a dark horse. Such a character is basically known to the entire underground heroes. Chapter 200. Fighting again. Stain. Sakata Jinsan finally couldn't sit still. He stood up and said, I'm just a running dog of the third Emperor of Kanagawa. He has to do what he ordered me, so I was helpless. Sakata Yinsong simply said, I haven't even seen the King of Poison once, but his people threatened me and must let me cooperate with them. In fact, cooperation is to help them fish. The missions are the same. I will go to Hosu City every once in a while. This is relatively hidden, so no one has found out so far, but basically people who go to the biochemical drug field are there. There is no return, so it has become a case of injustice. If you want to kill me, I can only admit that I am unlucky. I can't help it. If I didn't help the Poison King, I might have died a long time ago. Sakata Yinsong said more and more sad. Chi Feng has believed 80% of Banshin Yinsang's words, because Poison King knew he was a double Quirk, so according to the guess, Poison King might know that he is a UA high school student, but Banshin Yinsong did not seem to know. The reason why Sakata Yinsong didn't know it, so Chi Feng believed him. If even Sakata Yinsong knew that Underworld Legend was a student, then there was a problem. Now Banshin Yinsong doesn't know, which means he has not been exposed. In that case, I won't pursue you, but there is one thing I want to tell you. If you continue to help the Poison King to kill humans, the next time I see you, it will be your death date. Chi Feng is not polite, said. However, if I do this openly, the Poison King will send someone to find me. I'm still a dead end. Banshin Yinsong said with a little annoyance, feeling that he would die anyway. Chi Feng stared at Banshin Yinsong for a few seconds before he said, then you will get rid of the mess room and come to work with me, isn't it always okay? Banshin Yinsong immediately said as if he had caught a life-saving straw. Yes, absolutely, I will go to your office to report after I have packed up these few days. For him, it is better to join the firm of Undernight Legends than to cooperate with the Poison King. To say that the cooperation is actually a dogleg, and there is no benefit at all. The strength of Dark Knight Legend is very strong, although it is a little bit worse than the Poison King. There are really not many of the 7 Holy 5 Kings in the underground heroes that are his opponents. Chi Feng told Banshin Yinsong the location of the office before leaving. Originally, he came here today to see some blood, but Banshin Yinsong is also a poor person. Instead of killing one, it is better to save one. After Chi Feng left, Yinsong Banshin breathed a sigh of relief and collapsed on the recliner. It didn't take long before he picked up the phone and called out, all the assets of the shabby house are counted, and I am going to change hands tomorrow. As soon as Chi Feng arrived in Bozu, he received a text message from Midoriya Izuku, which showed only one address. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. It seems that brother Midoriya is in trouble. After reading the address, Chi Feng rushed over, put away the clothes of the Legend of the Night, and put away the Blu-ray short sword as well, but took out the cyan light sword. At this time, the villain alliance must have started to act, bringing Nomu out to vandalize, and Stain officially entered everyone's sight. No matter what happens today, we need to be very careful. You are too weak. Although your strength may be stronger than that of regular heroes, it is only limited. Stain's voice echoed in the alley. After Chi Feng heard the voice, he struck out with a thunder arc, knocking the sword in Stain's hand into the air. At the same time, Stain was also paralyzed, but Chi Feng knew that his attack method was fundamental. Can't really hurt Stain, it can only delay the next time. But this time is enough for him. After arriving in the alley, Chi Feng found out that it was a mess. Ida Tenya was lying on the ground unable to move, and his arm was injured. Brother Midoriya and Shoto Todoroki were also lying on the ground, seemingly unable to resist. If Chi Feng doesn't come, maybe there will be trouble today. Mr. Chi Feng. Ida Tenya looked at the man standing in front of him, and some tears flickered. Why did these people come to help him one by one? Mr. Midoriya and Mr. Hung too. Now everyone is in danger. Even Mr. Chi Feng is here. Suddenly Ida Tenya thought of what Chi Feng said to him before the workplace experience. If there is anything, I remember to find him. Is this the so-called thing? Midoriya Izuku and Shoto Todoroki were relieved when they saw Chi Feng coming. The hero's killer stain was so strong that they couldn't beat them. Chi Feng is the one who has the deepest experience among these people. Stain's strength Chi Feng knows better than anyone else. With his current situation, he can't beat Stain. At most, he will delay the time. However, Stain's Quirk blood coagulation may have a very low effect for him, because Stain's blood coagulation effect can be resolved by relying on the vital force. Looking at Chi Feng with a thin sword on his back, Shoto Todoroki and others began to wonder, where did Chi Feng go to experience the workplace these days? And it is not allowed to carry sword in this kind of city, especially this kind of very large controlled sword. But right now they know that it's useless to say these things. After all, villain Stain hasn't solved it yet. Maybe the sword behind Chi Feng can bring him chances of winning. Are you there, companion too? Stain didn't rush to move, but shook his body and said. The lightning arc just now was very fast, and it was a bit painful for him to be hit unsuspectingly, and his body was slightly paralyzed for a while. Raiden-related quirks. He has basically never heard of anyone who is a Raiden quirk. There may be foreigners, but there are basically no Raiden quirks in the island. So this kid seems to be much trickier than those three. You were right. I am a student of Ua High School. They're my classmates. If you want their lives, then you have to pass my level. Chi Feng took off the cyan light sword behind him, ready to fight. Facing Stain Chi Feng, he didn't dare to be careless, so he had to use all his strength, at least for Thor's return to play to the extreme. No matter who you are, you have to pay a price to hinder me. Are you ready? Stain picked up the sword on the ground. The thin sword in Chi Feng's hand accumulated thunder and lightning, and suddenly he slashed towards Stain. Stain had no intention to retreat. A small student wanted him to retreat. This was impossible. With two swords in front of him, Stain stepped forward and directly greeted him. Chi Feng's attack also arrived at this moment. Stain felt a sensation other than numbness in the shaking hands. This feeling seemed to flash by a blue light, and then the strength in his body seemed to weaken. Stain narrowed his eyes as he watched the thin sword radiating faintly in Chi Feng's hand.